Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння, різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар.
Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1024 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And today we saw major attacks on Russian oil. We also saw that apparently Homeland Security is getting involved in New Jersey with the drone investigation. And also the Russians are trapped in Syria, and now they're trying to flee at the same time. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of news from around the world for the large part, as we have been able to hear that over the course of today, Russia and Ukraine have launched incredibly large air attacks against the other, with the Russian Federation launching one of the largest missile and drone attacks seen on the Ukrainians over the course of the war. The Ukrainians were able to perform an unmitigated miracle, as they were able to shoot down nearly 85 to 90% of all drones and missiles fired into their territory, very few making them to their target, and a load of video and picture evidence came out showing the major successes and sometimes near miracles that the Ukrainians were able to conduct with primitive air defense systems in shooting down some of Russia's finest missiles. At the exact same time, a Ukrainian attack occurred on the oil depots at Orel today, a major lifeline for the Russian Federation's armed efforts inside the Kursk Oblast, and once again trying to stop the Ukrainian invasion and push them back into their own borders. From what we can see, the oil depot is burning significantly at this point, and it does appear that a serious blow has been dealt to the Russian Federation's logistical abilities within the Kursk Oblast, at least for a temporary time. Meanwhile, we've also been able to hear of some major events as well inside of Syria, as we have been able to hear that the Russian Federation's armed forces that have been trapped inside the country since the collapse of the Bashar al-Assad regime just a little while ago appears to have completely collapsed in negotiations with the interim government of Syria and are now going to have to leave the country whether they like it or not. At this very moment, we are getting satellite pictures and video evidence from the ground showing us that it appears that the Russians are packing up the Latakia airbase and will actually be leaving for the final time. We are also also getting information as well from the areas inside of northern Syria that it appears that the major Russian garrison at the city of Kamlishi, right along the northern Syrian border, appears to have packed up entirely, with a massive convoy of approximately 130 vehicles breaking into the wide open, racing across the deserts of Syria towards the city of Raqqa and on its way to the port of Tartus, hoping to arrive just in time to board the Russian vessels that will be loading up some of the last remnants of the Russian Federation's armed forces that are currently at the airbase at Latakia as well as Tartus. Meanwhile, outside of Syria and outside of the major news that the Russian Federation is having to escape, we have been able to hear that the Israelis have also continued to bomb rebel forces and interim forces inside of Syria over the course of today, as more video and picture evidence has emerged that they are continuing to attack key targets around the cities of Tartus and Latakia that are not Russian in origin, but are in fact based by the Syrian interim government and the rebel forces that make up the armed body of the Syrian interim government. At this exact same time, meanwhile, outside of Syria, once again, the situation with the unidentified drones flying over different areas of the northeastern region of the United States continues to grip public imagination, as the governor of New Jersey today has officially requested support from the federal government to be able to deal with and also possibly shoot down drones seen over the area of the skies of northern New Jersey. At the exact same time, it does appear fairly clear that according to information we are beginning to gather, that the drones are actually starting to arrive inside of northern New Jersey from the coastline, apparently flying from some unidentified location at sea and into northern New Jersey at this point, and then flying around near to the areas of the Picatinny Arsenal. We've even seen
it sounds like there might have actually been some credibility behind the stories and footage after all. Even though, several footage came out showing passenger airliners going through the skies, it sounds and looks like new footage is coming out from reliable sources or semi-reliable sources showing actual drones in the sky, and Homeland Security is now involved. So that's getting very interesting.
And we've also been able to hear that one of the former governors of Maryland inside of northern Maryland has been able to also see these drones on film as well, filming them from their backyard. And we are also able to hear that the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI have released a public statement today to the media stating what they believe is a concern or not with the current drones that are seen within the area of New England, or more so what would be called at the time the middle region of the United States, if we're talking about the 13 colonies sort of regional descriptions. But nevertheless, it does appear that things are getting very interesting around the entirety of the world. And we are going to, of course, be moving on into some of our most major news tonight, which was the unbelievable scale and size of the Ukrainian and Russian attacks that were conducted on each other overnight. It appears that the Russian Federation quite literally pulled out the kitchen sink last night, launching the largest drone and missile attack that has ever been seen so far in the war. We have been able to hear that in its entirety, 94 missiles and 193 kamikaze drones were fired by the Russian Federation into Ukraine. According to the information that we were then able to receive from the Ukrainians, Ukrainian air defense successfully engaged and destroyed 81 missiles and 185 drones, meaning that the interception rate was the highest that we had ever seen so far. Even more interestingly, F-16s were, for one of the first times in the war, used in an actual air defense role, shooting down a number of cruise missiles overnight, totaling somewhere around 11 total cruise missiles being shot down by the limited number of F-16s that are currently inside of Ukraine at this moment. We were able to get video footage from the entirety of Ukraine showing the drones and missiles attempting to make their way into Ukraine in their ill-fated journey that would see them never reach their target, but instead become a burning mass on the fields of Ukraine below. But we can see one of the missiles right there flying on over towards its target. Most likely one of the missiles that did not make it. It would be shooting against the odds if it did. And we can also see another cruise missile making its way deeper into Ukraine. Of course, a significant montage of missiles. This was a massive attack, and one of the few times that we've ever seen naval-based missiles being launched, at least within the recent time of this war as well.
Rumor has it that Russia spent $1 billion USD on this attack, which would equate to 104,461 million Russian rubles.
Or 2 Slava-class cruisers, like the Moskva, which was sunk in the middle of the Black Sea at the very beginning of the war. We also got a very interesting clip, speaking of the Moskva, of submarine-based calibers being fired at sea. This is one of the few times, I want to make that fairly clear, that we have seen Russian naval missile activity over the course of the later part of the war. Really for about the past year or a year and a half, due to the major losses of the Russian combat fleet inside of Sevastopol, we have seen that a majority majority of the Russian Black Sea Fleet has now been relocated, or at least its combat sections, into the area of the Vostochny Rayon inside of Novorossiysk, and largely have been unavailable to be able to conduct missile attacks on the Ukrainian state. However, last night we did see that they finally brought forward a couple of Rostov-on-Don class submarines from the Vostochny Rayon and Novorossiysk to be able to assist with getting as many drones into the skies as possible and on their way into Ukraine. And we were able to see some of the clips right here showing a Rostov-on-Don submarine firing its caliber missiles while submerged. And we can see that right here. And we're going to be muting the music that they're apparently playing on the ship, but we can see the missiles being fired right there in the distance.
That music's being played from the actual ship itself, from the military?
I think it actually was. It sounded a lot like it.
That's wild.
I can't really tell. Like, it could be or it couldn't be. That'll be up to y'all to figure out. Do y'all think that's coming from the actual ship or just added into the clip in post? But we can see it firing the missiles.
I see Mistisa said that Zelensky apparently said that the Russians chose this day to launch the attack when it was the coldest day of the year and intended to damage just the infrastructure. And that's probably true, actually, because it looks like what the Russians actually hit was electrical infrastructure mainly, with some other targets mixed in as well. So that sounds like pretty logical.
It does sound fairly logical, and this does fall within the Russian framework of their typical winter-style attacks, where they usually do not go after military targets, they go after energy infrastructure targets, attempting to freeze the Ukrainians into submission and towards the negotiating table to give concessions to the Russian Federation to end the conflict and also end the suffering of the Ukrainian citizenry, largely conducting a war through terrorism at this point by trying to inflict as much terror on the Ukrainian civilian population as possible and demoralize them to the point that they would no longer want to continue the war. Meanwhile, we were able to see more video footage coming from throughout the entirety of the state of Ukraine, showing the Ukrainians shooting down loads of drones and missiles. Here's one of the clips from Ukrainian air defense overnight, showing them engaging and shooting down Russian drones in the middle of Ukraine, near to the Dnipropetrovsk region. Here's the clip. And we see the gun firing here at the Shahed that's flying overhead. We see the drone going on down there at the end of the clip, but we didn't get to see it explode. We now see them firing a missile at another Shahed, impacting it and taking it out instantly, turning into a massive fireball as the warhead on board the drone exploded. We then see another missile being fired, and once again impacting another drone in the distance, leading it to explode. That's the end of those clips right there, but on up in northern Ukraine, we were able to see an insanely high amount of air defense action, as we were able to see the Ukrainians once again shooting down even more Shaheds in the 17th National Guard Brigade. I do want to remind y'all, this is going to be a little loud, so I'm going to turn it down a little bit, but here's the clip. Oh, and that's actually copyrighted a little bit. I heard Good Morning Vietnam in there, and I was not going to be around for that. But we can see the anti-air fire continuing to race up into the sky, attempting to meet the Russian drones and missiles that are flying into Ukraine's skies. And in a second, y'all are going to see somehow, miraculously, they actually were able to shoot down a decent amount of these things. Some of them actually belly flopping into the fields, apparently losing propulsion but not complete control, and largely just gliding on down into the fields below. Hence why we didn't see an explosion in the original clip. Meanwhile, we also got to see another cruise missile being downed with an Igla manpad. This was actually believed to be largely impossible before the war in Ukraine, but somehow, someway, towards the middle part of 2022, a Ukrainian soldier was actually able to shoot down a cruise missile with a manpad. This was something that had never been done in war before, and finally showed that for the first time ever, simple infantry units equipped with manpads, or man-portable air defense systems, could engage and destroy the most advanced cruise missiles in the world. And we were able to see this again right here today. And there goes the missile. We see him lining up the Igla for a shot. And in a second, he's going to pop the shot. Here we go, and there goes the Igla. Off over the horizon.
It always looks like just for a brief second that little missile might have a malfunction, like the way it drops out of the chute like that, but that's pretty cool how it just takes off.
It really is cool. It's kind of like the Javelin in that way, but there it goes off into the distance, and it got it. A dead-on hit. And we now see later on they actually made it to the missile's landing site and were able to show off some of the debris. We believe it was a
mighty fine debris right there. They're eating good.
Man, dude, like when you're at the fancy party and you don't really know what the cheese is called, could I have debris? But moving on.
That was a good one.
But moving on from that and into the next clip, we also get to see some more debris on the ground as well. Now, every time I say debris, I'll be thinking of debris like brie cheese. But we can see right here more debris that was on the ground after some of these missiles were successfully shot down. And look at that right there. Pretty nice to see, and good to know that the Ukrainians were able to largely protect their skies. Few made them through, and we were able to see the Ukrainian air defense report as well, once again showing us that an insane number of drones and missiles had been engaged and shot down in the area. According to the air defense report from the city of Kyiv, 80 missiles were shot down, 80 calibers specifically, 80 drones, and 1 Iskander-M was also shot down as well. All in all, the air defense around the city of Kyiv was wildly successful, and it does appear that the remainder of the drones and missiles fired throughout the rest of the country were also unsuccessful as well in making it to their targets and actually causing any significant damage. Nevertheless, it is wonderful to know that the Ukrainians were also able to return the act in kind, firing their own drones into the Russian Federation, which it appears that the Russian Federation was not simply equipped to be able to deal with the damage that was then going to ensue. Many Ukrainian FPV drones made their way to the city, well, not FPV drones, but kamikaze drones, made their way to the city of Orel, also called Orel. It really depends on who you are and where you're from, on what you call this place, but nevertheless, the city of Orel is a little bit of an interesting one. The city of Orel, if I remember correctly, was largely built up during the 1850s in the Russian Empire, and then was really grown up during the post-World War II era in the Soviet Union, as a bit of an industrial base for Western Russia. Not only that, but there is a significant oil depot within the area, which I've been trying to find as I've been explaining the city of Orel's history, and it is not right there. This is not it. There is another one that is larger and more significant somewhere in the city, and I had it once again geolocated. I'm doing terrible with remembering where I geolocated stuff these days. I honestly need to just put the marker right down on the map where it is, because usually I like to do the hat trick where I just put the marker down and then bring y'all straight down to the oil depot. But nowadays, I've got so much stuff I'm having to try and remember because there's so many different stories from so many different areas of the world, I can't really remember exactly where the oil depot actually was. But nevertheless, there is an oil depot inside of Orel, and we were able to see that this significant depot was attacked and destroyed overnight by Ukrainian drone attackers. We got loads of video and picture evidence from the city of Orel, letting us see that the drones did do a significant amount of work in the area. We can see this video here emerging from a Russian looking out of a multi-story apartment building off into the distance as it appears that the oil depot is burning. We can also hear the sound of a loud motor and then another explosion as well.
The intimidating sound of a lawnmower fell on the city of Orel that night.
Or it could be a Mustang driver, either one equally destructive. But we can see here that the fire is now roasting the facility.
Oh, well, it looks like it was a direct hit too, like right in the center of it.
I gotta tell you, it does look like it was a pretty significant hit. And I guess
love how the Russians just pull out their phones, start recording this, like, oh, look, another one. They want another oil depot. And I thought Putin was supposed to be moving in air defense for these. What happened to that?
Well, the issue is that the Russians don't like Orel, so for that reason, it appears that they did not defend the city too well. There is a pun in there, and if you get it, you get it, and if you don't, you don't. But moving on from that, we were able to see another clip of the oil depot burning. But to actually answer your question, Matthew, it appears that the air defense inside the Russian Federation is stretched very thin at this point, and considering the absolute landmass that they have to be able to try and protect, it just doesn't appear that they'll ever have the prerequisite air defense to be able to defend every single spot inside of the Russian Federation, and for this reason, it appears that Orel was largely undefended when it was stricken by the drones overnight. But we were able to see more pictures and clips right here as well, and it does look as though the city of Orel will be having a pretty decent burning sensation going for quite some time. Probably not a great thing, and maybe they need to look into mouthwash. But moving on from that, now the city of Orel, we were able to hear in the city of Ryazan that it appears that the Russians are getting a little festive. While the oil depots may be burning, it is reminding people that the weather is keeping them quite warm indeed. And many people always know that Father Frost is not too far away, and that may be why the Russians were trying to strike at Ukraine's energy infrastructure, to once again remind the Ukrainians of the old legend of Father Frost, who doesn't give you presents, he just freezes you to death in the middle of the winter. But nevertheless, Ukrainian drones did strike a Russian oil depot in mainland Russia, and a lot of people are wondering, why are these specific attacks becoming less frequent? We've seen that Ukraine's attacks inside of Russian territory have been about as numerous as they have been in the past, but the specific oil depots being attacked and destroyed is becoming far less frequent as they start to reach out and diversify their targets that they're striking a great deal. Sometimes hitting headquarters, sometimes hitting repair facilities, sometimes hitting factories and other installations, but oil depots are becoming less and less. And a load of people have the question, what are the Ukrainians doing and why? And it seems as though a lot of people are believing that the Ukrainians have shifted focus elsewhere. But Matthew, tell me what people are really thinking about that. Where did the Ukrainians' attention really go? Did it just get diverted from the oil depots, or is it that the Ukrainians are just taking a break from this, or something else? And what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so on this poll right here, about 55% of the audience said Ukraine has shifted their focus elsewhere, away from the oil depots and onto other targets that are not necessarily Russian oil, while 20% said Russia has fortified the oil facilities, and that's why Ukraine's not striking them as often, and 9% said Ukraine is simply taking a break, and they'll be back to it here shortly. And on this one, I'll honestly say, I think I'm actually with the 20%. I think Russia has largely probably fortified the very large and very important oil refineries and facilities, and that's probably why we've seen the attacks start decreasing over time, because once again, if Ukraine's able to take out the Russian oil industry, that will have a cascade effect on the Russian economy, and that could lead Russia to basically collapse internally, and that would obviously win the war for Ukraine on that front. So that would be a big win, but we're seeing here that the attacks from the Ukrainian side are becoming less frequent with these drone strikes on these oil refineries. So I don't think that they would want to shift focus elsewhere, personally. I think that there are some oil facilities with air defense around them that are actually being protected properly, but occasionally, though, Ukraine will find one like the one in the city of Orel that is not very well protected, and that's when they finally strike, and that's when they take it out. So that's my opinion, but Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I do believe that the Ukrainians have shifted focus elsewhere, and I also believe that they're not looking to completely destroy the Russian oil infrastructure, as that may cause an artificial panic inside of Russia, considering that they can slowly grind them down into submission for the large part in the oil industry. They might not want to just completely obliterate them, because that could start freaking them out badly enough that they may start to seriously consider the use of nuclear weapons. At this point, with the amount of damage that the Ukrainians have caused to Russian oil infrastructure, we do understand that the Russians are bleeding about 700,000 barrels of consumable oil products per day, which is a very significant amount compared to the actual overall Russian oil consumption, as well as the Russian strategic oil reserve. I do want to make it fairly clear that the oil we're speaking about is not crude oil, it's actually refined fuel products, and from what we know, the Russian Federation is actively running out of them even at this time. With this in mind, I believe that's why the Ukrainians have started to redirect their attacks elsewhere, because they're slowly going to let the Russians bleed themselves dry once again with the severe oil fuel, well, really usable fuel products deficit that they're having at this point, and really allow that to eventually eat away at the Russian economy slowly until the point they implode. And so in the meantime, they're beginning to move on primarily to other targets outside of oil depots, such as command posts and aircraft manufactories, to be able to try and deal those other deadly blows that could be dealt to the Russian Federation's warfighting machine, and not just their oil infrastructure alone, as the damage has already been done at this point, and they're really just waiting for it to actually kick in, or really for the Russians to pretty much bleed out in a figurative sense of their oil reserves. But nevertheless, that's what I would largely be thinking at this point about the situation. And we are also hearing from Moscow that while the Russian, well, actually, really quickly, I forgot, Matthew, it's the holiday season. How in the world can I forget this, Matthew? Christmas
Bring out Father Frost. Bring him out.
We got to bring him out. So we actually have partisan Santa. Now, Father Frost apparently was a little too hardcore for these kids. Freezing kids to death isn't exactly a story that's, going to last the ages. It's a really good and endearing story for Christmas. So it appears that they brought out the next best thing. Santa as a Soviet partisan, which is really great because you always know that the children love a Santa that is a partisan fighter. Now, the video was filmed on a potato. I do have to let you all know that, so the graphics aren't great. But this is Santa Claus, not Father Frost. This is Santa Claus dressed dressed up as a Russian, well, more so a Soviet partisan from World War II. Everyone knows that everyone's favorite character during Christmas is a Soviet partisan. Soviet partisans ate wallpaper soup, and they always had pretty bad living conditions for the large part, and generally were executed summarily whenever they were found. But one thing that is great is the kind of treats that they received. Bread and sugar. It's truly the greatest thing about Christmas is getting a loaf of bread and maybe a little bit of sugar. We can see that this partisan Santa Claus right here is going to be reminding the youth in the Russian Federation that they better be lucky to have bread with sugar on it, because back in the day, they simply just got bread without the sugar, and the sugar came separately. But here's the clip of partisan Santa Claus in the Russian Federation.
Bro is moving very gracefully out here.
I think he's drunk.
Партизаны мне сообщили, что вы приготовили для наших солдат подарки. Вот я и пришел, чтобы собрать их.
Also, is that a yellow armband? He needs to be arrested by the authorities. He's a Ukrainian in disguise, man. He's a Ukrainian spy. Look, he's got a yellow armband on.
Also, isn't that warlock fella from that Christmas movie where that one little character was talking about, I want to be a dentist? Well, isn't that the warlock?
I don't know what warlock you're talking about, man. I don't think there was a warlock in that movie. I think there was a guy who, like, went around, like, looking for peppermint, like a peppermint miner, Cornelius.
Remember, it was like Meister Burger or something like that, and it was like the warlock in it. You know what I'm talking about? You got to remember that one. Come on.
I do not remember that one. I remember Meister Burger, and then the guy turned into Santa Claus, but I do not remember a warlock in any of those movies.
Interesting. You ought to go back and watch it. I know it was there.
I will, because I was like, I have no clue what you're talking about, man. But also, we have to see what Father Frost is bringing as gifts. So now they're playing a war song. Christmas is a very warlike holiday. And now we're seeing still pictures of child soldiers and Soviet propaganda posters, which is always a holiday favorite. We're also hearing partisan music as well. Or specifically more so Soviet music. Very interesting. They're decorating a small Charlie Brown-like Christmas tree, very Russian-like considering that the economy is destitute. I don't know what's up with, like, the whole worship of, like, dying in battle, even during Christmas. You would think that they kind of let that off during this time, but still, they keep it going.
This is that Ring Around the Roses with the emphasis on the ashes part, I think.
Yeah, I think this is Ring Around the Ashes, like, or something like that. It's something... So now they're waving at the tree, probably because it's on fire in their imagination, much like the Russian economy, but that's the end of the clip, and it does appear that partisan Santa Claus is an all-time hit and a massive favorite inside of the Russian Federation. One always must remember partisan Santa. Meanwhile, inside of Moscow, we were able to hear that Ramzan Kadyrov received a medal for, apparently, let me make sure that we get this, significant contribution to the strengthening of Russian statehood and the country's defense capability. This is, by the way, in the middle of a very quiet blood feud that's going on in between some Russian lawmakers and Ramzan Kadyrov's semi-autonomous Chechen Republic in the meantime. But let's watch Putin awkwardly give Ramzan Kadyrov a medal. See him kind of weirdly waddling up there, shaking Putin's hand like a gremlin, and he gets the medal. And then he goes back, and then Putin's like, no, you dumbass, you take pictures. And then they take some pictures and stand together for a second.
This medal is being presented to you for eating the most ham and cheddar sandwich in 24 hours ever seen in the Union.
I've got to say, Don, I would like to thank Elon, Don, for shutting off my Cybertrucks, Don. That really took a lot of effort to get them here, just for them to be turned off next week, Don. I'd also like to thank everyone in Chechnya for tolerating me, Don, eating ham and cheddar, Don. Really advancing Russian statehood, Don, by Russifying the Chechen people, Don, by getting them familiarized with ham and cheddar, Don. I'd also like to remind everyone, Don, that I am not really the leader of Chechnya, Don. I was actually installed by a Putin, Don, but I am very happy to take this medal, Don, that is most likely made out of a burned armored tank, Don, from Ukraine, Don. But moving on...
Also, By the way, like, I don't think Kadyrov can actually even eat a ham and cheddar sandwich, can he? Because I think the ham goes against what he believes, right?
Well, that's the whole part of him in intensifying and increasing Russian statehood. You see, he's actually westernizing the Chechen people by getting them familiarized with ham, something that they generally
Oh.
culturally do not accept.
Oh, yeah. I guess he'll make an exception for the ham and cheese this time, I guess.
He will, because it is only the way. It is the true way of the Russians. But meanwhile, outside of the major news that we got inside of the Ukraine-Russian war today, we also were able to get some major news out of Syria that while Putin is awarding medals to Kadyrov, things are not going well for the Russian Federation inside of the former Syrian Arab Republic that is now controlled by the Syrian interim government. Meanwhile, yesterday we were able to hear news that it appeared that the Russians were conducting negotiations with the interim government to try and remain within the Syrian Arab Republic, but it doesn't appear that this negotiation attempt has gone well. As we are seeing that today, it appears that they are packing up and truly trying to leave for good, even having the garrison at Kamishli, which you would not believe would be leaving considering how deep it is inside of Syria, packing up and making a race as fast as they possibly can from Kamishli to the port of Tartus to try and load on board the Russian vessels that are going to be arriving soon and get out of the country as soon as possible. It appears that the situation is beginning to deteriorate in between the rebels and the Russian Federation, so it does appear that at this point, the Russian Federation will not be remaining inside of Syria well on into the future. And we were able to see a video clip right here showing us the insane size of the convoy that has escaped from Kamishli and is moving on its way to the port of Tartus here in this clip. We see him here showing the massive Russian vehicles waving Russian flags, which is usually done in Syria by all sides to identify whose forces they are quite visibly. But moving on down a highway through Syria in Syrian Democratic Forces controlled territory, of course still a part of the interim government at this point, as they're making their way to Tartus. I'm going to be turning down the sound of wind blasting our eardrums out so that way we can all hear each other. And we see here a Tiger M armored car, and a military police Tiger M, by the way. We can also see a...
You know, what just prevents the Syrian rebels from actually, like, striking the Russians as they're leaving? What's actually preventing them from doing that?
The Russian government might declare a full-blown war against the rebels, although technically they were really at war with all the rebels, and so then that means that the Russians may actually stay and try and get heavily involved, although they probably wouldn't, to be entirely honest, because at this point they're surrounded in enemy territory, and to be entirely honest, they have much bigger fish to fry in Ukraine.
Yeah, it seems like, honestly, like you're saying, they could take, like, free shots of the Russians right now leaving Syria, and there wouldn't be much the Russians could actually do about it. That's why I was wondering myself, is as seeing them leave like this, they're very vulnerable as they're trying to leave the area, and the rebels know where they are, and they could get a few pot shots in if they chose to.
They probably could. I don't know why they're not shooting at them. I believe the rebels are just so hell-bent on trying to create a stable peace in the region that they're not even going to fire on the Russians and instead just allow them to peacefully leave the country at this point instead of trying to destroy them or completely wipe them out. I believe that probably is the case, maybe. But we can see
That'd probably be best, I guess, from a diplomacy standpoint. But, you know, if the U.S. would slip them $1 or two, I'm sure they would maybe take a few pot shots at the Russians.
Maybe so. Maybe, honestly. And we can see here the insane number of Russian vehicles that are pulled over on the side of the road. Y'all can really get a respect for the size of this convoy. It's several miles long, made up of over 130 vehicles, and it is endless. Probably some of the few good-looking pieces of equipment that's left in the entire Russian army is in Syria at this point in this one convoy.
Just lines and lines of equipment. And of course, the Russian flags all over. You'll never be confused who this is.
No, you won't. Generally, the United States does this as well. Inside of Syria, we fly U.S. flags over the top of our MRAPs. It's usually something that's done so that way no one can be confused or misidentify vehicles as another rebel factions or the Assad regime. They would be identified as Russian or American off the bat, or maybe even another country that's also involved in the region as well, although I can't think of any examples off the top of my head of another country rather than Russia or Syria being inside of Syria, well, Russia or America being inside of Syria. But we can see that the convoy does continue even beyond the bridge, It is
Also, I see Mestizo said maybe there's a payoff to not attack the convoys. That would probably be the most logical answer I could think of as well. There must be some deal in the background that the Russians struck with the rebels, probably involving some money or something of that sort, to actually cause them not to attack. Because surely the rebels are simply not just attacking out of the goodness of their hearts. That would typically not be the way they behave so far.
Maybe not, maybe so. It's really hard to tell. We do know that the interim government and the rebels, which now answer to the interim government, are largely maintaining peace in the area at the moment and only going around attempting to arrest former Assad officials. So it may just be that they are actually so hell-bent on trying to create a peace that they actually would just allow them some sort of a pardon to pass through the territory and leave as long as they never return. Or it may be the fact that the Russians have paid tribute of some form in a monetary sense, and this is what is allowing the Russians safe passage through this area and towards the port of Tartus. Either way, the Russians are leaving for good at this point and will not be returning to Syria at any point in the future from what we're understanding.
I think they give them a little tribute of some sort. I'm not sure what kind of tribute they would get because the ruble is pretty much worthless, but they might have gotten a little something out there.
Maybe a little something. I'm still hard-pressed to think what it would be, but I guess cash is cash, and even though rubles are worthless, as long as maybe the Russians actually gave them U.S. dollars, because they do have a U.S. dollar reserve.
Wild. That would be wild to give away some reserves just to like get your way out. Like that would be a doozy.
Yeah, but I mean, it's that or they lose hundreds of vehicles and thousands of personnel that's stuck inside of Syria at this point. Because from what we understand, there are a lot of support personnel that are stuck. We believe it's around an entire brigade's worth throughout the entirety of Syria, approximately 3,000 or 2,000 inside of Syria at this point that are stuck there. So they can either lose all of the equipment, all of the aircraft, all of the ground vehicles, and all of the helicopters as well, along with the support troops, because they'll just get wiped out on the ground. There's really no way to help them or save them at this point, or they can pay maybe some U.S. cash reserves to try and get these people out of there, and that may have been what they did, because the U.S. dollar is obviously a lot more strong than the Russian ruble ever has been. And I believe that the Russian ruble, if I'm correct, Russian ruble $2. Let me go check this really quickly. So, it appears, oh, I got it the other way around, hang on, dollar to ruble. There we go. So it appears that they have been able slightly, ever so slightly, to stabilize the ruble just a tad. Many of y'all knew that it rapidly inflated, but now it appears that they've leveled it off at a nice 105 rubles per dollar. Still the highest rate that it's ever been exchanged at in history, but still, it looks as though they tried to cook the books one last time and hold it off again. And, like, it's just crazy. You can see every single time that they've attempted to cook the books to stop it from just rapidly skyrocketing. And every single time, it just holds it off a little bit. But over time, it just doesn't seem that it's really going to be holding back the tide of the Russian economic collapse. It just doesn't really look like it.
Those Russians and their economic strategy, I'm telling you what, they did the economy so good, they leveled the ruble off at bedrock. That's a damn good strategy right there. Like over 100-something rubles for $1 US. Anything over 100 is crazy bad. But even under that, like slightly under, like 90 rubles to a dollar, that's still horrifically bad as well. So they literally leveled off at bedrock.
They really did, honestly. It doesn't look like they're doing all that well, and it looks like they might actually be doing worse here in the future. But meanwhile, towards the area of the Latakia airbase, we were able to see that the Russians are clearly not going to stay, and it does appear the negotiations have completely fallen apart. As we were able to see today, satellite picture evidence from the Maxar satellites showing an Antonov 24 with its nose lifted open, and it appears that it's loading up certain kinds of military equipment that is high priority to be transported out. We can also see another Antonov 24 at another area of the airfield as they are beginning to load up possibly helicopters. We were able to see a Ka-52 right here stowed and ready for transport, getting ready to leave the country. We were also able to see in other areas of the airport some additional clips of air defense moving out. It appears that this S-400 system that was at the airfield is now going to be leaving and heading towards the port of Tartus, possibly too large to be loaded up on board the Antonov 24s or the IL-76s, and they're going to be moving into Tartus instead to be loaded up by some sort of a Russian naval support vessel and then transported on the long journey all the way around Europe and back into Russia, either through St. Petersburg or one of the northern ports if that's even accessible at the time. Meanwhile, we were also able to see from the airfield as well that there is a likely evacuation going on. I wanted to make that fairly clear that it does appear that it is a likely evacuation because we were not able to hear about the condition of Tartus. And as of the information we got yesterday, we were hearing that the Russian Federation was negotiating to attempt to stay at Tartus and Latakia Air Base, Tartus Port and Latakia Air Base, to make that a little bit more clear. But it does appear that with them fleeing the airfield, it appears that they also probably collapsed the negotiations for the port as well. So we do not know if the negotiations have completely fallen apart, but we do know that for the airfield and for the Russian forces at Commissionly, it does appear that they are currently trying to flee the country and get out of there. Although our information from the area around Tartus was a little bit more unclear. We also got information inside of Tartus as well that the Israeli Defense Forces and the Israeli Air Forces are now once again continuing to bomb the Syrian interim government's controlled territory, as it does appear near to the coastline areas at Latakia and Tartus. Major airstrikes are being conducted by the Israeli Air Force, possibly destroying more strategic sites and personnel of the Syrian interim government that has just been created. We were also able to get additional footage as well of the Israelis hitting more targets within the area, as we were able to hear that Israeli strikes today targeted Syrian army sites in Tartus and Latakia, according to the local reports. It does appear that the Israelis are once again starting to conduct major attacks against the Syrian interim government's forces, and this may not bode well diplomatically well on into the future. But we were also able to see some footage that finally came out from the Israelis, showing them targeting and destroying the aircraft of the former Syrian Air Force on the ground. That happened about 5 days ago. We were able to see this right here. We see that that is a Syrian MiG-23. And here in a second, they're about to slam it with a nice bomb right there, leveling it.
I still don't understand. Like, I know we beat this point to the ground. I just don't understand the logic behind destroying these aircraft. Like, you know, let the rebels have a small air force, so that way they can try to ward off the ISIS threat, and also try to at least be able to protect their territory that they just now gotten control of, now that Assad was removed. Now that they're taking out all these fighter jets like that, and pretty much finishing off the rest of the Syrian Air Force, it's leaving the new Syrian government pretty much defenseless. So who are they going to rely on for defense?
I don't really know, and I don't think this is a good idea, not just on a military level, but on a diplomatic level. This is going to start pushing the Syrians into a more and more hostile position once more with the Israelis. Once again, I've got to make this clear, because I know that there's going to be a flood of people saying that the Syrians are terrorists and bad, evil people, and they're irredeemable, so we ought to just bomb them back into the Stone Age, which is, honestly, it kind of sounds a little racist, honestly, when people keep saying that. But nevertheless, the Syrian government is brand new. The government that we're seeing right now is brand new to the scene, does not have any of the sins of old. It has been washed of such a thing, and it is not an evil and irredeemable government. There's a very good chance that it could be leaning in the Western direction on the continued bombardments of the brand new Syrian interim government's controlled territory is once again only going to be causing diplomatic tensions to rise in between the new Syria on the Western world, and may eventually push them away back towards the Iranians. We want to make sure to deal with the diplomatic situation carefully in the region, considering that Syria is brand new. Let me remind you all of many evil, irredeemable people that when they got a brand new government started to become very pro-Western. South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, Germany, let's see, Poland, let me think, what else? Italy, that's probably a pretty good one. Spain, let's see here, who else would have joined our sphere that was very questionable back in the day? Those are really the best examples that I can think about right now. Oh yeah, the Vietnamese, we actually trade a lot with them these days, so they weren't that irredeemable and evil. Let's see here, who else? I think that's about it right now. But if I remember correctly, there was this guy in charge of Germany called Hitler, and they ran like one of the sickest political regimes to ever exist in history, called Nazi Germany, and killed millions of people in these camps. And then at the end of the war, their government collapsed because they had been unconditionally defeated. A new government came in their place, and instead of us just bombing the Germans into extinction, their government actually turned out being pretty amicable to the West, and ended up becoming eventually a full-on integrated part and a key ally of the Western world. So it does show that just because you sit there and say, oh, look at old blood, they're mean and nasty people, doesn't mean that they're irredeemable. These people certainly do have a great chance of becoming an amazing Western ally, and not only that, a supporter of Western interests inside of the region. And we have to treat them that way, because otherwise we're going to automatically push them back to being an enemy. And I know what people will be thinking. Oh my god, how in the world could we not see this coming? They became a friend of Iran's. That's crazy. It's not like us bombing them every day of the week had anything to do with them going the Iranian direction, because they were getting no friendly actions from the West, or no friendly, really just extendings of hands of friendship possibly from the West. That is a very important thing on the diplomatic level, because just simply being somewhat friendly to them could end up kind of creating a pretty good thing out of it overall. We've ended up being friendly to the Saudis back in the past and the Jordanians, and they eventually started leaning so pro-Western that they actually ended up defending Israel in the last attacks from Iran. So I would say that giving them a good chance of entering the Western sphere before you start bombing them probably would be a pretty honest and solid move, just in my opinion. That's just my take, though. But still, a lot of people are talking about the Russians trying to leave Syria, and a load of people are starting to wonder, will the Russians be able to save the jets or not at Latakia? Because there are a lot of expensive and valuable jets that are currently stuck at the Latakia airfield right now, and everyone's fairly unclear on whether the Russians will be able to get them out or not. But it does seem as though a decent amount of people have faith in the Russians that they will try and get the planes out. And so, Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
All right, so 39% said yes, Russia will save the jets, while 36% said no, Russia will abandon the jets, and 14% said I need more intel. And this is a question that we actually discussed last night just a little bit, because right now the fighter jets of Russia are currently left behind at several different air bases across Syria, and right now with the very uncertain situation with Russia leaving, the big question is, are they going to be able to leave with them? So honestly, I think last night I might have said that they might have to abandon them, but seeing what's happening today with the Russians being allowed to pretty much leave, it looks like Russia might be able to save their jets, unfortunately, and they might be able to get them out. So I'm kind of leaning toward the 39% that said Russia will save them. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that, in my opinion, I believe that the Russians are going to give it a good shot to try and save the jets. The jets are incredibly expensive, they're incredibly valuable, and something that the Russian Federation simply cannot lose, at least to this point. They do not have the industrial ability to really just pump out replacements for these jets fairly easily, and they also really don't have the money to do that either. So with this in mind, they're going to certainly try and give it their best effort to try and get the jets out, even if it means that they have to try something very risky and dangerous, which is just flying them out and possibly having some of them shot down. It would be better if just a few of them made it to Russia instead of none of them, and pretty much giving them all over to the rebels. So at this point, we are believing that they probably will try and recover the jets, at least at this point. But moving on from that, I also did want to share with you all that there were some Israeli airstrikes that did happen in Damascus today as well, as it does appear that the Israelis are kind of just going all out and making sure to maybe put a little bit of an idea in the Syrian interim government's mind that they might not really be that friendly to the Israelis, or really the West at large. But moving on from that, we are going to be moving out of the Syrian Arab Republic, or the Syrian interim government for the large part, and also, really quickly, I'm going to address this once, because I see people who just will never really see the same side as me, and that's fine. People can disagree, but I still see points that don't make any sense. Like, people say there's only a 1% chance that Syria will go Western. Okay, explain to me all four factions then, if you know that it's exactly a 1% chance. Explain to me all four factions and why all four factions will not lean towards the West when 3 out of the 4 already did in the past. Please explain that to me. I would love to hear why some people believe that the Syrians just never have a chance of becoming a Western country. I hope that kind of addresses that somewhat well, because, you know, I generally have read a lot about the fall of the Ottoman Empire, the rise of the republics that came out of it, including Turkey, and for good reason. There is a general reason to believe, with how things went from the 1960s onwards, Syria could easily become a pro-Western country, or at least a lukewarm ally of the West, much like any country in the Middle East has done. But moving from that, it is now time for us to move on over and into a bit of news that is something that really has been getting a lot of people's attention recently, and that is Northern New Jersey. It is time to talk about it. It is something that a lot of people have been talking about, quite literally anywhere and everywhere, for weeks at this point. It has been something that has been going on so much and has been captivating the public's attention so badly that pretty much every single level of state and federal governments involved are beginning to get involved in the situation and trying to add in their 2 cents and figure out what is going on. There are loads of things that are going on here right now. One, we are finally starting to hear where the drones are coming from, as there are so many people observing the drones and getting information on them. It does appear that they are coming from the sea. That is something that we generally are understanding. They're flying in from the New York, New Jersey Bight area, and flying in towards the area of the Middletown Township, and then flying a path through New Jersey and then into northern New Jersey. It's a very interesting kind of a thing, as we were able to see here, according to reports, that the United States Senator, well, a U.S. Senator, has reported seeing multiple drones flying over New Jersey yesterday, and local police are saying that they've seen them every single night, and once they get too close, the drones turn off their lights and go dark, showing that there is some active involvement to evade law enforcement and governmental authorities that are trying to observe the drones at this point. The drones only arrive after dark and disappear before dawn, once again showing that the drones have some sort of a larger actor, a possible other national actor, making sure to largely avoid any actual surveillance of the drones and their specific capabilities. They appear to travel in swarms of 2 to 4, and some are illuminated in solid white lights, and others have red and green directional lights, possibly showing that they may be fixed wing in shape or design and flying over the area. We also do understand that they are generally coming from the area of the New York-New Jersey Bight, which is this area of sea directly in front, and let me go show you all this, directly in front of New York and New Jersey. It largely moves from the lower bay out into the open sea of the Atlantic, but that's generally where the drones are flying in from, at least according to what has been observed so far. And we were able to see more clips of these drones as they are flying into the area of central New Jersey and then making their way into northern New Jersey right here. And we see the drones flying in. We can see that the drones do have navigational lights on. You can actually see the red and green lights. Once again, I just got to say this because I know the conspiracy theory are going to be coming in with the tinfoil hats. These are not UFOs. UFOs do not have navigational lights and are not adherent to the Federal Aviation Administration's guidelines on flight safety. So they do not have navigational lights.
What if they did adhere to FAA regulations? Would that be a good, few points for the aliens?
I guess that's a bonus point for them, but I'm highly doubting that they have an FAA manual out there somewhere in space. I'll be entirely honest. But we can see the drones flying on over, and then the video clip ends. But once again, showing them entering from the sea in some sort of a swarm. Meanwhile, we were also able to see some additional video here of the drones as they were moving in. From a distance, they do appear to be white orbs, but as they got closer to the camera people on the ground, we were able to see that they did have navigational lights.
Just very odd. I wonder why they keep flying over New Jersey and around that general New York area like that. It's just kind of weird why they're choosing just to fly around that area. I think also that maybe there's some reports coming out of Maryland as well, flying over some sensitive bases.
Yeah, it is a little bit of an interesting thing, and we now see another clip again as the drones appear to intersect in air and then pass over each other.
Wow, they just passed each other. Yeah, I've never seen that before.
Yeah, that's very unusual. You know, that kind of debunks the idea that that could be maybe a commercial jet because they wouldn't pass that close to each other.
Yeah, they would not. So that largely is showing us that this is not commercial aviation. This is some sort of a foreign actor, most likely, that's flying the drones, at least at this point. We are starting to iron it down to this is, without a doubt, drones being flown by some sort of a foreign actor, most likely the Islamic Republic of Iran or the People's Republic of China, most likely trying to conduct some sort of intelligence gathering operation within the area by using drones that have been launched from the sea. Although that's once again a very large hypothesis because we still don't have any exact details or information about these drones at the moment. But that's the end of those
Also,
clips.
by the way, I saw Jessica Burns say there's nothing big or severely important in New Jersey. At first, you would think that, but there actually are some sensitive sites in New Jersey for the Army and things like that. Isn't Picatinny Arsenal in New Jersey, I believe? Is
Yes.
right around that area? Yeah, Picatinny Arsenal is actually extremely important. It conducts research for the Army for their future weaponry. So that's a secretive facility right there, and it's right in the middle of New Jersey. And also, there are other military facilities around New Jersey that are important. So there would be a reason to be here. And also, in fact, the entire New England area does have quite a few important bases. So there would be intelligence gathering targets there, I guess you could say, if someone wanted to see it.
And let's see here. We actually have a couple of bases here that I can list off really quickly. We have the Naval Air Engineering Station at, Lakehurst, New Jersey. We also have the U.S. Army Cadet Command 2nd Brigade, which is a JROTC thing, so that doesn't really count. We then have Picatinny Arsenal. We also have Naval Weapons Station Earl, Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst, and we also have a couple of smaller bases as well. And really quickly, let's see, these are just Air National Guard bases inside of New Jersey. So there's the 177th Fighter Wing and the 108th, and let me make sure that I get this correct, the 108th, let's see here. It does not explain this one, but the 108th air wing of some kind is also in New Jersey as well. So there is a sizable amount of military activity that is conducted inside of New Jersey that may be of interest for surveillance and intelligence gathering operations within the region. There's also a great deal of military equipment inside the state of New York as well, along with Pennsylvania and Maryland. There's also a great deal of intelligence gathering operations that are conducted inside of Maryland and Virginia as an extension of the CIA, the FBI, the National Security Administration, along with many others. But still, it does.
But Enforcer, as well, I see some people saying, well, why would they want to go to just to New Jersey, perhaps? And also, isn't this like U.S. drones or testing of U.S. military equipment? And at first, I thought that as well. I thought maybe they were being launched from Picatinny Arsenal and actually being sent up to test some type of new U.S. Army weapon. But considering the fact that we're seeing these over foreign U.S. air bases as well, in Britain and other countries, plus we're seeing them here in the United States, not just in New Jersey, Maryland, and the New England area, but also over in apparently Washington as well. This indicates to me this is probably not a test of some type of military equipment of our own. This seems like it could be something, perhaps maybe of a foreign power. I'm not sure how they would get here, maybe by ship or something like that, but it seems probably likely along that line.
It might be the case. And we were also able to see some more information as well about the drone sightings, as it does appear that local law enforcement groups are actually actively out in trying to attempt to track these drones. Also, big shout out to the police for using Flight Radar 24, which is something that we also use every once in a while to identify certain kinds of aircraft. I don't know why they're using Flight Radar, because it's not exactly like the drones are going to be shown on Flight Radar, but nevertheless, it does show that local law enforcement is heavily involved at this time on trying to figure out the exact details of the drones that are flying and also try and gather more information about them. It appears, however, that some people are starting to take the law into their own hands. And before I even show this clip, I do have to remind everyone that firing at drones in U.S. airspace is a federal crime, so do not replicate what you were seeing in this clip. This person was stupid enough to actually film a video of themselves firing into federal airspace, and also I just got told by Matthew that the video is actually apparently a fake. Matthew, how did we find that out? Because right before we went live, the last thing I heard was that it was the real deal.
So it looked real, but if you look at the very end of the video, because someone actually that's a little bit more knowledgeable than us about how to determine whether or not the video is fake, they saw at the very end that the audio and what was going on in the video did actually not match up. So apparently the original video, it's apparently real footage, but the guns and the tracers and things like that, that was all added in post, so it's fake.
Okay, so we will be getting rid of that one because that is not an actual video. Nevertheless, the drones, whether people are firing on them or not, which it sounds as though luckily no one is, because we would not like to see citizens of the Republic breaking federal laws that pertain to airspace safety. But nevertheless, we were able to hear that the governor of New Jersey has become concerned enough that the governor has actually written to the President of the United States to request federal support in trying to actually assess what information we have on the drones. And so I actually will be writing, well, not writing, but reading to y'all the exact letter that was issued by the office of the governor of the state of New Jersey to the office of the President of the United States. Dear Mr. President, I write with growing concern about reports of unmanned aircraft systems in and around New Jersey airspace. As you are aware, unmanned aircraft systems have become a standard feature of American life over the last decade, used by hobbyists, researchers, and for commercial purposes alike. The proliferation of this technology has introduced additional risks to public safety, privacy, and homeland security, while state and local law enforcement entities remain hamstrung by existing laws and policies to successfully counteract them, leveraging or leaving action around UAS squarely on the shoulders of the federal government. Since November 18th, New Jersey State Police have received reports of UAS sightings in our airspace. Existing laws limit the ability of state and local law enforcement to counter UAS, and at my request, Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas briefed my administration and our congressional delegation on actions the agency would take to learn more about the reported UAS activity. His team, as well as the Homeland Security Advisor Dr. Elizabeth Sherwood Randall, has been exceptional partners in trying to unearth the cause of these reported sightings. A team from the Federal Bureau of Investigation has been leading the interagency investigation, and we are appreciative of their attention to this matter. While I am sincerely grateful for your administration's leadership in addressing this concerning issue, it has become apparent that more resources are needed to fully understand what is behind this activity. This week, week, the FBI testified in a joint subcommittee hearing before the Congress that the federal government alone cannot address the UAS. New Jersey residents deserve more concrete information about these UAS sightings and what is causing them. The continued reporting of UAS activity has raised more questions than answers and prompted an outcropping of conspiracy theories across social media and other platforms. I respectfully urge you to continue to direct federal agencies involved to work together until they uncover answers as to what is behind the UAS sightings. I have directed the New Jersey State Police and our Office of Homeland Security and Preparedness to assist them in any capacity. In addition, I have supported your administration's efforts in asking Congress to extend counter-UAS flexibilities to state and local law enforcement entities and to support additional funding for these activities. I'm encouraged that consensus in Congress is building and providing these additional authorities, which will be necessary as New Jersey prepares to host the FIFA World Cup final in less than 2 years. And I look forward to their action on the issue of national security. As always, New Jersey stands by to assist as the federal government leads this investigation. If I may be of help in any way, please do not hesitate to contact me. Sincerely, the governor of New Jersey. So it does appear that the official governor of New Jersey, the actual state of New Jersey, is now requesting for further federal support to try and figure out the exact reason of the drones, the origin of the drones, and why there are so many of them that are unidentified and not reported that are flying around in the airspace of New Jersey. But it doesn't appear that the situation only exists inside of northern New Jersey. And it also appears that many are saying that there has been some very interesting claims at the moment about the drones inside of northern New Jersey from the federal government, but we'll be getting to those here in a minute. We were able to see more drones that were spotted inside of northern Maryland by the former governor of Maryland, Larry Hogan, which took a video from his backyard, apparently showing more unidentified drones that were now flying over in high altitude the airspace of northern Maryland. We see the video here as we see the white dots in the sky, largely a drone of some kind with navigational lights on board most likely, although they are so far away we really can't tell, and they just appear as simple white orbs.
You said this guy's name was Hogan?
Yes. Brother.
Good evening, brother.
They're drones, brother. But still. When you see
it is kind of crazy to just walk right out in your backyard and you see some drones floating around. I guess I would want to know what they were too. Well, that's a lot of them.
I don't know if those were stars or drones, I'll be honest with you right there. But we can see the other ones here at lower altitude, not directly overhead.
No, I'm afraid those aren't stars.
Yeah, it looks like they actually are drones. And you see the former governor continuing to film the drones over the house.
And also, I see Mikey said in the live chat, are they releasing chemicals? There's honestly no evidence of that whatsoever. Someone posted a video earlier today showing a drone or some type of aircraft flying with a contrail behind it, and they claimed that it was releasing chemicals. Contrails are well known to be formed by aircraft flying at altitude, so that's not anything new. And it seems to be that people are getting mixed up with that. And there's been like a ton of conspiracy theories that contrails are spreading something, and that's just, y'all know that's false.
Also, I saw someone in the chat saying that these are not even drones, although everyone knows at this point that they are drones. They are actually, and let me see if I can get the direct quote here. Let's see. Oh my lord. I believe these craft are fallen angel technology, prepared to take their, no, that's not it. These are drones. It is not anything magic or corporeal beyond the spirit being or whatever. These are just drones. It always makes it very hard to discuss things that actually are of national security concern when some people cannot just accept. Well, let me ask this. If it was fallen angel technology, so angels actually adhere to FAA regulations on navigational lights? Like, are you kidding me? Like, come on, let's just say that is true, okay? Let's just say that's angel technology. So this fallen angel technology, before it fell, they equipped each piece of it with a navigational light system, right? Although it's just a fragment of an entire system that you're explaining here. And then it falls to Earth so gradually it's floating, practically. That makes no sense. And that's why it's always so hard to talk about this stuff, because there are always, I'm not going to lie, loonies that come out of the corner and they're like, this is transcendental of the human state. We can't even touch them because they'll just phase right through you. It's like, come on, like, work in reality here. These are drones. We're trying to figure out who's actually flying the drones. That's what we're working with. It really just drives me crazy. I have very little patience for stuff that literally is in fantasy land or la la land or something you'd hear in the psych ward. Like, I'm just not a big fan of that kind of stuff. But moving on from that, we were able to hear a statement from the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI, as they did issue a statement today. And this was a statement that was published jointly by the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI. We have no evidence at this time that the reported drone sightings pose a national security or public safety threat or have a foreign nexus. The FBI, DHS, and our federal partners, in close coordination with the New Jersey State Police, continue to deploy personnel and technology to investigate the situation and confirm whether the reported drone flights are actually drones or are instead manned aircraft or otherwise inaccurate sightings. Historically, we have experienced cases of mistaken identity, where reported drones are in fact manned aircraft or facilities. We are supporting local law enforcement in New Jersey with numerous detection methods, but have not corroborated any of the reported visual sightings with electronic detection. To the contrary, upon review of available imagery, it appears that many of the reported sightings are actually manned aircraft operating lawfully. There are no reported or confirmed drone sightings in any restricted airspace. We take seriously the threat that can be posed by unmanned aircraft systems, which is why law enforcement and other agencies continue to support New Jersey and investigate the reports. To be clear, they have uncovered no such malicious activity or intent at this stage. While there is no known malicious activity occurring in New Jersey, the reported sightings there do, however, highlight the insufficiency of current authorities. And it does.
That's total bogus right there in the middle of that second paragraph. It says there's no reported drone sightings in any restricted airspace. That is bogus, because there was actually a report here. Let me try to scroll through our Twitter to find it. Let's see here. Let me try to scroll down and spot it. Let's see. It looks like 12 hours ago, there was a story out that multiple drones entered airspace at a New Jersey naval station, according to officials. So that was an official sighting there, apparently restricted airspace. And also, the statement itself really doesn't tell us anything. It's basically like a meaningless statement there. They're really not making a confirmation or a denial. They're simply just saying there's something going on and we're looking into it, and that's the end of it.
Yeah, it's a little weird. It does seem as though a lot of people are not buying the statement that the DHS and FBI probably made with good intentions to try and largely settle public fears, but at the same time, doesn't really appear to be believable on any metric, and largely possibly dishonest. But nevertheless, it does appear that many people are saying that this attempt at a statement by the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI may have been pathetic, as there really isn't a large amount of info known about any of the drones at all at this point. We know that they're drones, but that's about it. Some others are saying that it sounds a little bit like a meaningless answer. Few are saying that it's a good answer, and some are unsure. But Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about this as well?
All right, so a nice even 50% said that is pathetic, and we have no info, even though the Homeland Security and also FBI issued a statement on the matter. We still have no issue, and it's pathetic. 30% said it sounds like a meaningless answer, and 8% said, good, at least we know we're safe. And I will say, that statement that they put out does not reassure me one bit that we're safe. In fact, it highlights the lack of information that they're giving to the public about the situation. Right now, we basically know there is something in the skies above New Jersey, Maryland, and also New York, but we do not know in the public what it is. I have a feeling that the government probably already knows. There was a statement from a politician today, who I will not mention their name, who actually gets daily classified briefings, and he suggested that we already know what these drones are in the sky, and that the government's simply not being truthful with the American people. So I would honestly have to tend to believe that, because right now, surely we know what's in our airspace, and I have a feeling that we do. With so many sightings over many restricted air bases and things like that, surely we have to have some information, and right now we're not getting any information in the public. So I think we're being lied to an extent, some with the 50%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to be with the 50%. The statement was misleading. I believe that it is lies for the large part. We can largely understand that. But the thing is that with the lies that are issued by the government, most of them are with fairly decent intentions. This one probably is to try and say to people, okay, everyone, nothing to worry about. No big deal. Let's all just move on with our lives. Probably trying to get people to calm down and just move on from it. Because if they come out and say something like the Iranians are flying drones over northern New Jersey, if that was the true story, people are going to be wanting to kill everyone in Iran by tomorrow. That probably would be the case. So they're probably trying to put out statements like this to be like, okay, everyone, let's calm down. Because if you all remember back in the day when the Chinese balloon was flying over the United States, everyone wanted to go bomb the Chinese the next day. Like, that was what happened, and that's largely why the government kind of plays things down. Or you end up having loonies coming out of the loony bin saying that it's fallen angel technology with FAA compliant navigational lights, and for some reason those greater beings from the heavens themselves apparently follow FAA regulations. That's a little bit bizarre, but nevertheless, that's probably what the government is trying to avoid. So with that in mind, I would say that there clearly is something going on in New Jersey, really over the entirety of the lower New England, well, this isn't really the New England area, this is more so the American East Coast, if you want to call it that. There's something going on over the northern area of the East Coast at this point, but the government isn't really sure if that should be publicized or stated exactly what's happening, as there may be a large amount of public pandemonium that is created by that statement. And I also want to say that very clearly, I understand why the government does mislead in these instances. A lot of people always go, well, it's not nice for the government to be dishonest. But one thing I can say is that I have seen in the past why the government will be dishonest, because if people actually know the reality of some situations, there will be a call for blood that may or may not really be needed. It could be the fact that these are Chinese or Iranian drones that are flying over New Jersey, and the U.S. government knows that. But the reality of the matter is that there isn't really anything much that they can do, or the government has assessed that it isn't really a major threat, and they're trying to quietly work really behind closed doors right now on a fix to this issue without keeping the public apprised of it the entire time, or without really letting our adversaries know exactly what we understand about what they're doing at this time. So with that, that's probably why they're trying to put out statements that are saying nothing's going on and don't worry about it. I can largely understand where they're coming from. Of course, it does make the public incredibly unhappy when the government puts out statements like that, because our eyes are obviously showing us a different story, and the story is that things are not okay in northern New Jersey, and it does appear that there's a large amount of drones up there that are causing a great amount of disturbance, but at the same time, that is largely something that the government isn't really wanting to try and stir up pandemonium and panic about. Also, it's a very deep thing to explain, and I hope that a lot of people get that when the government's doing stuff like this, not to try and explain everything away and make it sound perfect. The government is in a meeting right now when they put out that statement. The people in the DHS and the FBI, and they're going, what would the public the backlash be if we put out a statement that right now there are drones flying over northern New Jersey from the Chinese? And then they're going, well, that wouldn't be good. And there would be a load of people who are going to be pissed off, and there's going to be a load of people who are angry at the government, angry at the Chinese. It's going to cause massive disruptions. And so we need to just kind of keep this on the down low and figure this out in the background in closed circles. That's probably what's going on. That's what I would assume is going on.
I think it's probably better for them to just come out and simply say it. I get what you're saying, that some people will take this opportunity to go berserk and start causing mayhem as a result of drones being in our airspace from maybe a foreign adversary. But at the same time, when the China balloon flew over our territory, the government tried to keep that secret, and they covered that up so nobody would hear about it. But then a civilian actually photographed it, and then it got all over the news that there was Chinese balloons flying over our airspace. And the damage that does for trust between the civilians and the government in the U.S., that is tremendous. Like, after the balloon incident, many people who maybe might have slightly trusted in the government started distrusting the government very heavily as a result of that. So I would say, honestly, they should simply say it. It will probably be discovered eventually by somebody what these drones actually are, and it's better to be upfront about it than simply holding back.
I would say probably the best thing that we could do at this point, if anyone wanted to do this, go to northern New Jersey, try and find the drones, and try and get the highest powered camera you can with the greatest zoom on the lens that you possibly can, with the best focus at long ranges, and try and see if you can get a decent picture of one of these drones to at least give the public a little bit of an image of what these things actually do look like. I'm assuming that they probably look like Baba Yaga style drones of an incredibly large size, almost commercial in size. That's That's what I would generally assume. Some of them may be fixed wing as well. But if we get a look at the drones, we can start to really iron down what country they may be from, considering that they're most likely from a foreign adversary at this point. I feel like that's probably the best assumption that we can make, because they're flying over government facilities, which, you know, if they're testing them out of Picatinny Arsenal, why would they be flying over other naval facilities and also other governmental facilities inside the state? That doesn't make a lot of sense. And also, that could generally be violating airspace restrictions over those air bases and other forms of military bases. So once again, that wouldn't make a lot of sense if this was being done by the U.S. government. So with this in mind, it has to be someone from outside the United States. So if we can get a good look at these drones, maybe we can figure out a little bit more about where these are and what they are. I'm fairly sure at this point, though, that the Department of Homeland Security probably has the very same cameras I'm talking about, and probably has even seen these things in infrared at this point, and has a very good understanding of the shape and construction and design of these drones. But nevertheless, I don't believe any of that information has been published to the public yet so far. Maybe
And
we'll
also, I've heard that they've been flying aircraft over these drones. Like the military's been flying aircraft, or some agency has been flying over them and taking photos of them. I'm not sure if that's 100% corroborated, but I have heard different sources saying that, and I would tend to believe it. Obviously, if there are reports of drones, you would send up something like a helicopter or an airplane or something to get photos of it, and surely they've already done that. Like they did that with the China balloon as well. They sent up a U-2 actually to go get pictures of it, and they had pictures for a very long time, and then the public found out, and the pictures came out several weeks later. So they probably already know what this thing is, and they probably even know where it came from too. It's probably somewhere off the coast, like that congressman suggested.
Maybe so. Maybe possibly so. And that could have been somewhat true. It may just be a merchant vessel, no specially designed form of a drone carrier that's launching these drones, but it's being operated by some sort of a foreign government like the Chinese or the Iranians. But I'm seeing a load of people, and this is why the government doesn't want to make statements like this, because if this is happening, it is not great. And then there's people saying, "You're saying that the government can't protect us from China and Iran? Why should we trust the government?" And it's just like stuff like that the government wants to avoid, because yeah, it's not good. And then they'll come up with a defense strategy to avoid this in the future. But for now, it's something that is new and unknown. And then people are going to start saying crazy stuff like the U.S. government can't protect us against the Chinese and the Iranians, and it's all over, in chat we're cooked, and we may as well just give up and let the Chinese just come over and massacre the whole country or something like that. That's what they're trying to avoid right now. And I'm not gonna lie, y'all. It's so crazy whenever I cover this thing, the kind of stuff people will say: fallen angel remnants, UFOs, aliens, and then also the U.S. is completely defenseless. Hashtag cooked. Like it's just everything across the board. That's why the U.S. government is keeping this on the down low, because there generally isn't anything reasonable that comes out of the public sphere. Like, if they are somehow doing this, the answer should not be, "Chat, we're cooked, let's give up." Like, I think that's just a loser's mindset. We ought to be going, how in the world are we going to stop this from happening again? And what kind of systems do we need to create? And what do we believe that the Congress should approve funding for? And then we move down that line. And then we avoid this from we stop this from happening again. And then we also try and develop a similar ability to what they have, but we'll actually be able to make it through our very own defenses if need be. And that means it would be a very vital form of intelligence gathering against our own adversaries. That's what I would generally do. But those kinds of answers don't come out of the public, because the public is generally, the best way I can say, the public is a very reactionary group, especially the ones that speak the loudest, and they generally never think of problem solving. They just think about whining and giving up, and then they also start to breed that same kind of a mindset in others, and that's generally what we were wanting to avoid. But anyways, moving on from that, Anthony didn't approve us to go this long on this segment. It is now time for us to move on out of the drone segment and on back into the Ukraine war, because there's still a lot of news to cover from the Ukraine war at this point. And moving on into it, also, by the way, we're going to be passing the middle question segment, because at this point, the stream's getting so long run in the news segment, we may as well just meld the whole thing together into one giant news segment. So moving on from that and into Ukraine, we were able to see that in our location unknowns, in our location unknowns, we had some pretty interesting stuff. One, we got to see Ukrainians driving through snow, and the Ukrainians, who are so poor, have to make their coffee made of snow, and they use the Humvees to pack the snow to make it more efficient. We see him drift in here. And actually, I just really quickly passed a poll that we had asking y'all all about the drones. And so we'll be quickly going back to that here in a second and trying to get an answer to these very serious questions. But we see the Humvees drifting in the snow, really cool. And moving on from that, we do have one last question to ask y'all before we move on from the drones. With drones being spotted over sensitive military sites, should they be shot down immediately? And Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
All right. So, should the drones be shot down immediately, or should they let the drones come in and then investigate some more, and then find out what they're going to do then? So, a whopping 70% said yes, shoot the drones down immediately, while 14% said no, we should investigate first, and another 14% said it really depends on the details. And I would say this: we spend a lot of money on our radars and things like that. We should probably put them to the use and take these drones out of the sky if we see them. What else are we having air defense for if we're not going to actually shoot stuff down? So if this stuff is foreign, we should have taken it out immediately once it crossed into our airspace. That's pretty much a no-brainer to me, so I'm with the 70%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say, in my opinion, I believe that the drones should be shot down immediately. Generally, we cannot shoot down drones with wild abandon over the airspace because it is still commercially open airspace, and it could cause a great amount of damage, possibly, if they were to be shot down just at random. We would have to start evacuating airspace and maybe even areas in localities in northern New Jersey to shoot them down, so that way people wouldn't be injured from falling debris. The other thing, however, is that once they pass over the threshold into the airspace of a military base, I believe that they should be shot down immediately. Any of the damage that is caused after that could easily be dealt by base authorities, the fire brigades that are on pretty much any military base, and not only that, it once again sends a message to whoever this is, even if this somehow was just some random group inside the United States that was operating these drones, that U.S. military bases are not to be trifled with, and drones will immediately be shot down once they fly over the airspace of a base. So pretty much my answer is let them have it if they fly over a base. But moving on from that and out of that news, it is now time for us to get on back into the Ukraine news. And moving on to our next bit of location unknowns, we were also able to see another cruise missile shot down in another most interesting way. Observe. With a 50 caliber machine gun. And there we go. He got the hit. It's a magic miracle. A miracle of the Lord. We can also see another one being shot down with the Igla like we saw earlier, this time from another angle. Look at him go.
Догнав. Догнав? Ні. Догнав!
Hey!
Hey, he hit it. Look at him go.
Є, пішла вниз. Є, вот летить.
Oh! Dude, they hit that thing so hard, the missile literally started to tumble in flight. Look at that. The hit's right there, and the missile is literally tumbling in flight. Look at that. That's crazy.
Oh, man. Oh, it's going to keep going, though.
And it slams down right there in the field.
Wow.
Dang. That was wild. And that's seeing that clip. Big shout out to the 114th Tactical Brigade, I believe, of Anti-Air, the Anti-Air Brigade right there, the Tactical Aviation Brigade, I believe that says. But nevertheless, moving on from that and into our Russian casualty report, we were also able to see a fairly interesting report. Oh, no Bobcats!
Oh, man. 0 Bobcats. What the hell? Tell us more.
It's you sounded so sad. Like, but beyond that, Ms. D said, the keeper of the record said, troop losses are dropping off. 140 consecutive days over 1,000 daily. Losses are now an average of 1,342, and the artilleries are staying at a new lower level in terms of losses. But 1,390 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 31 APCs, 50 supply trucks, 5 main battle tanks, 6 artillery pieces, 65 drones, and nothing else. But generally, it was a pretty decent day overall. And while the Russian losses are beginning to drop, they are still remaining incredibly high in general. But moving on from the Russian casualty report and on into the front lines, we were able to see a Ukrainian FPV drone being checked out by the Russians' nearest relatives, pigs. And we can see them right here checking out the FPV drone as it's waiting to attack an unsuspecting vehicle that should be passing by any minute now. Paul Orkin.
That would suck if these pigs right here touched that thing and set it off and became bacon. Oh, look, he just touched it.
Yeah, he did. And then they just wandered off after that. They had to see if it was a bomb, and they decided it was not a bomb. But moving on from that and down into the area of Konstantinivka, we also got to see a Russian Lancet drone taken down over the area as we hear Pink Panther music playing in the background.
That's what a drone looks like, folks.
Oh my god! It's an alien! It's a Lancet.
A what?
It's a Lancet.
Yeah, but it said called it something else though in the title.
What did it call it in the title? Bullet-ass Lancet.
What the hell?
I don't know what the hell that means. I've never heard anyone call it that before, but there it goes. And now they're gonna get it. And that drone's called Buddy Tommy. I don't know what the hell these names are, but they're gonna get it anyways.
Buddy's gonna hit Lancet, ass or whatever it was called.
Bullet-ass Lancet.
A bullet ass.
And we see them finally coming on down on top of the Lancet. And they got it. And it apparently was the Skyguard units that got the Lancet. And I guess it's just... Alright, and then we got a nice
I like
tag
their
there.
titles. That looks like they bought a new title pack and they were going to try it every font.
Yeah, it's like they wanted to try it all to make sure that they liked it before they returned it under the 2-hour minimum usage time. But we also got to see the Russians getting attacked by an M1117 armored protection vehicle. It was an armored car for the large part. But you see it here, moving on through. And we're going to be muting that here. But you see the Ukrainian tanks softening up the Russians first. And we now see the M1117 moving on in. And you see the Ukrainians blasting the Russian houses and then assaulting the positions rapidly.
Oh. Yikes. Yikes.
Yikes. 3 exclamation marks after that. Yikes indeed. But moving on from that, that is actually all the footage that we have from inside of Ukraine today, believe it or not. That was all of the combat footage that we got. You can see it's getting a little bit sparse out there with combat footage from Ukraine. But moving on from that, we are now moving on into Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 1024 of the war. And so without further ado, here is a truly long-lasting speech, a whole 5 minutes. And so
Give me a speech.
without further ado, here is the speech. Speech!
Дорогі українці, українки, перше дякую нашим захисникам неба. Це була сьогодні одна з найбільших російських атак проти нашої енергетики. 94 ракети різних типів, і крилаті, і балістичні. 81 збили. Також було майже 200 ударних дронів. Загалом ми бачимо, що росіяни намагались перенавантажити нашу ППО, як вони і завжди це роблять, в таких масованих ударах. І також вони спеціально чекали морозної погоди, щоб зробити гірше для людей. Удар відбувся якраз під похолодання. Це свідомий, цинічний російський терор саме проти людей. Кожна ракета була націлена на той чи інший енергооб'єкт. І завдяки влучності наших воїнів та надійності систем ППО багато врятували. Зараз в областях працюють енергетики, ремонтні бригади, там, де потрібно, систему відновлюють. Сьогодні ж провів перше засідання технологічної ставки, формату, який ми обіцяли, щоб дати більше інновацій нашим силам оборони. І саме питання про більшу силу для ППО обговорювалось на цій технологічній ставці. Про захист від ракет, захист від шахедів. Потребуємо ще більше можливостей збивати все це терористичне сміття. Брали участь у зустрічі ставки не лише представники армії та сил безпеки і розвідки, але також виробники зброї, науковці, люди, які точно знають, які технологічні речі можуть бути зроблені. На наступну зустріч в такому форматі ми очікуємо вже конкретних рішень. Будемо залучати і інших представників оборонно-промислового комплексу. Обов'язково треба ще залучити людей, які вже давно допомагають армії стати більш технологічною із волонтерської спільноти. І саме технології мають стати відповіддю на деякі ключові питання щодо результативності наших підрозділів в бойових операціях. Чим більше технологічності, тим більше збережених життів. Сьогодні ж говорив з нашими європейськими друзями президент Фінляндії. Я подякував йому за підтримку України, українців. Є новий пакет підтримки, оборонний пакет. Фінляндія готує ще один пакет. Також ми домовились з президентом Стубом, що Фінляндія працюватиме із нашими запитами на додаткові системи протиповітряної оборони. Говорили і про те, як більш активно працювати з партнерами щодо гарантій безпеки і наближення миру. Була розмова із главою уряду Латвії, наша взаємодія, двосторонній рівень та наша координація з іншими державами Балтії, а також нордиками. Готується саміт JEF – Joint Expeditionary Forces – саміт об'єднаних експедиційних сил, формату співпраці в Північній Європі, і там відчутне британське лідерство. Україна завжди долучається і проговорили, що потрібна повноцінна наша участь на рівні повноправного учасника цих сил. Я вдячний за готовність допомогти із комплектуванням бригади разом з іншими партнерами в Балтії та Скандинавії. Вже готуємось до зустрічі в Брюсселі наступного тижня з європейськими лідерами. І ще одне. Є оборонний пакет від Сполучених Штатів Америки, і це, серед іншого, ракети для ППО, для хаймарсів, також артилерія, обсяг пакету $500 мільйонів. Дякую президенту Байдену і обом партіям в Конгресі, усім, хто підтримує наш захист, життя і людей. Щоразу, коли є нові російські удари по нашій країні, ми потребуємо, і це об'єктивна потреба, кроків, що демонструють Путіну, його терор не повинен спрацювати. Він застосовує ракети замість того, щоб шукати, як припинити війну. І саме війна і залякування – це те, що тримає російський трон під цією особою. Але партнерам варто переживати не про те, як забезпечити стабільність таких осіб у Москві, а про те, як гарантувати стабільність собі і світові. Стабільність і безпеку, які можливі лише у мирі. Вдячний усім, хто допомагає нам наближати мир. Слава Україні!
And Heroam Slava.
Героям слава!
And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 1024 of the news of the from around the world, not just of the war in Ukraine, but quite literally around the world. But that is also moving us on into our second question segment of tonight's stream, where we get to talk to each and every single one of y'all, and it is an incredibly fun segment. We really do have a blast with this whole thing. And I gotta say that I got to thank everyone so far for watching tonight. I believe there was around 10.3 thousand people at the peak, and nearly 60,000 people have watched this stream so far. We are always honored and very appreciative to know that so many of y'all continue to choose this channel to be your primary source of news from here and well on into the future. And so with that, take it away, Matthew.
All right, so we are moving into our final question segment here, but real quick, Enforcer, I wasn't able to hear the entire drone segment earlier. Did you cover the news about the sheriff talking about the drones coming from the ocean?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure, because I saw here, it looked like some more information about it, about the sheriff talking about he saw at least 50 drones coming in from the ocean, and it looks like he mentioned something about the Coast Guard being called as well. So I don't recall if you covered that Coast Guard part or not, did you?
I don't think I covered the Coast Guard part, but I covered that they saw them coming in from the sea.
Interesting. So the Coast Guard information here, it looks like, according to that sheriff, the Coast Guard was called as well when he spotted those drones. They spotted 13 drones off the coast from their boat, estimating wingspans of 8 feet. And apparently, it looks like the sheriff department deployed the industrial-grade drone that they have, but it was easily outrun by the other drones. And he also claims that the drones disappeared into thin air. That's coming from the sheriff, apparently. So very interesting. That's fascinating, coming from a sheriff, and also apparently the Coast Guard corroborating it. So that kind of goes contrary to what the Homeland Security told us as well. But anyways, that's a big mystery. We may never get the answer to it anytime soon. But we are moving here into our Super Chat questions, and our first one is going to go to JMP Traveler, who puts in a $100 donation. Thank you very much, JMP, for the largest super chat of the night. And JMP says, I want $100 because that's how many points I want on me to score on Navy. And take one from the chat.
Dang, and you're putting it out there for real. You're wanting the Navy to lose. And I got to tell you, Army versus Navy? I can't say. The Army and the Navy are just so important to the amazingness of this republic and what we truly are. I cannot say that I'd want the Army or the Navy to win over the other, but I wish you the best of luck with your endeavor, JMP Traveler, because folks like you help this channel to be possible, so that way folks can root go Army or go Navy. Either way. Something that might be interesting to many of y'all is that the Navy's actual march, Anchors Away, is a march that was made for the Army versus Navy football game, if y'all didn't know. There's an entire load of stanzas that were cut out of the actual song that actually talked about them beating the Army in the football game. So that's a pretty interesting thing about the Navy's Anchors Away that is just an interesting part of the Navy's history. You know, you just can't ever beat that kind of stuff. But still, thank you so much for the massive support tonight and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it was not for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. We wouldn't be able to keep it running. And so huge thanks to you once again, JMP Traveler. And I hope I addressed that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And let's see here. Here's the thing with Twitter. Like, I'm seeing some pictures coming across Twitter, which appear to show something that looks similar to the drone flying over the skies. It does look vaguely reminiscent of the wingspan of a commercial airliner, but I can't tell if these are doctored images. With AI being so good these days with replicating images, it's really hard to tell what's real and fake anymore. So I'm going to hold back on showing that one, but I will save that one off in the corner because it does look somewhat convincing. So we'll take a look at that later. But anyways, moving on to our next super chat. This one goes to Andy L, who throws in a $50 donation, and also Jim Morrow, who throws in a $50 as well. And huge shout out to Andy and Jim for that massive support and helping to keep the channel running. And I don't see comments to address with either one of them, but huge shout out to you both. And Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta thank both of y'all for the massive support. If it wasn't for folks like y'all who supported this channel and helped it to keep on running, we would not be able to make this thing possible into the present day. And so a massive thanks to you once again, the both of you, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it was not for folks like you, we would have not been able to make it possible up until the present day. And so with that, I thank the both of you once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. But before we move on, folks, I did see something. Matthew, did you see the thing that supposedly claims that one of the drones had crashed?
Oh, well, yeah, I saw that. That was a Cessna that crashed in the street, by the way.
Oh my god! Oh, now that I see it, man, I gotta show this to everyone. This is too funny. Is this one of the drones that crashed? Looks like it. It's literally just a Cessna on the road. Like, you can literally see the strut from a Cessna 172 right there where the mouse cursor's at. The shit fucking crashed. Oh my god, it crashed! It's a drone! Oh, that's crazy, man. Like, look at that. Man, I'm telling you, man, alien technology sure as hell looks like a recreational pilot's dream. I mean, that's crazy right there. You'd almost swear it was like a propeller-driven, like multi-seater, single-prop aircraft. It's kind of crazy that that's what the aliens are flying these days. It must be that fallen angel tech, Matthew. Like, I guess the angels are flying around in Cessna 172s as hobbyists. Very unfortunate. No way! That's why, folks, it's so hard to talk about this kind of a deal, because you end up with goofy stuff like this, with a literal caption drone down looking at a normal Cessna. But also there was another interesting one up here. This one was really interesting. This is supposedly, I don't know if this is a picture you're talking about, Matthew, of what appears to be a commercial airliner. Yeah, and it really does look like a commercial airliner. You can see the wings, you can see the main, what are they called, Matthew? The nacelle struts for the engine nacelles. You can also see the engines themselves. You can see the front cowling. This honestly looks like a Delta liveried aircraft, if I'm correct. Maybe a 737 possibly.
Yeah. I mean, me personally, it resembles like a commercial airliner, but obviously it's dark and it's very low resolution. You can barely see anything, but it doesn't really look like a commercial airliner. But then again, like I said, the reason why I held this one back is you really cannot tell what's real and fake. It kind of has like the marks of maybe like a fake image or something, but it does have a ton of navigational lights all over it.
Allow me, Matthew. Allow me to do what I do. My thing. Allow me to do it. Because I'm going to do it, Matthew. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to show something that gives away that this is a Delta. You see that light right there? The reddish light at the bottom, which is a strobe light on the bottom of a plane? You see that?
Yes.
All right, and you see how you can see clearly one of the engine nacelles, the left engine right there, and how it's blue And then it has this white, like almost silver looking paint job on the front of whatever that nacelle is. That is literally the engine cowling of a Delta airliner. You can see it right here. The blue engine nacelle and then the front silver lining on the front of the engine cowling. It is literally a Delta commercial airliner right there.
Maybe. Let's see the image again.
Right here and right here.
I'll be honest with you, I'm not really seeing it.
It's quite like you can literally see the blue belly of a Delta airliner right there on the bottom. Like you can hardly see it. The fuselage is white, bottom of the belly's blue, the engine nacelle blue, silver front up to the cowling, larger wings, has a green
But
navigation.
the proportions are a little bit off, I think, because the wings are not exactly as wide as they should be, from what I can tell. And also, even if the flaps are down, the wings aren't wide enough, and also they're not long enough either. And also, where's the front of the plane?
Well, it's a picture at night. I mean, it's not like we're going to get like high fidelity, and it's not exactly an ultra 4K HD either. It's just a picture of a plane that's moving probably at about 200 miles an hour, so they don't really have a focus on it. But I mean, it has a strobe light. There's a strobe light, and this may not be the exact same model of aircraft. It may be different, but it heavily resembles a Delta airliner. I mean, it has the same paint job on the belly. You can see a dark color or some sort of a design on the vertical stabilizer, which a Delta aircraft would have. It has the navigational lights, a green one on the right, like it would have right there, a red one on the left, which you can see over there just a little bit. It has a strobe light on the bottom. It also has the lights that are in the fuselage right here that light up towards the front area or more so towards the ground, helping them with landing on runways at night. It quite literally looks to me to be a normal Delta commercial airliner.
Maybe. Also the tail doesn't look quite right either. What's up with it? It's like a shark fin instead of a normal tail.
Well, it could just be that it's moving, and it wasn't able to get the picture really well. I mean, like that does look 100% to me like a commercial airliner that's flying at low altitude, most likely on an approach to a runway, most likely. And the reason why the wings don't look the proper dimensions is because you're looking at it from an angle, so you're not looking at it top down or from the direct front where you can get a true perspective of wingspan. You're looking at it from the side at an odd angle, so the wings look as though they may be stubbier because you're seeing them in a way that would make them appear stubbier. That would be the way I'd have to explain it, because I don't think UFOs or foreign actors are going to go, you know what, let's paint it up to where the engine nacelle and also the underbelly is the exact same paint job as Delta uses. That doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Now, something's off with it, to be honest with you. Like, something's off. Like, it's either AI generated or this is not the Delta plane. Like, I'm just personally not seeing it. It looks out of proportion. Like, something doesn't look right about it. I know you're saying there's some distortion with the camera and it's moving and stuff like that, but something about it just looks wrong. I think it might be fake.
I would say that's probably just a normal picture as they get of an aircraft landing at night. Put up a poll on it. Is this a real picture or not? I want to see what people think about this one, because I'd say, to me, it looks like a real plane, like 100%. This is just a commercial airliner that's landing. I mean, it has all the FAA compliant navigational lights, strobe lights, and everything else on it. It would have to be a commercial aircraft, because all the drones we've seen so far, they may have navigational lights. I've never seen any of them with a strobe light. So I would say 100%.
Yeah, maybe so.
Yeah, I would say
one lag.
Hmm?
I said that lag, by the way. I started talking. It sounded like you were finished, and then you started talking again. That lag's just horrendous.
Man, it is horrendous. But let's see here. Someone said, put up the poll. And also I see Walter Illicotta saying, tell the enforcer it looks that way is because this movie. Actually, I'm the one who's saying it's a commercial airliner, and Matthew's the one who's saying it looks a little odd and might be a spoofed or faked picture. So I'm actually the one who's saying this is just a commercial airliner. And it does appear that, at least right now, with all the votes that are coming in, the large majority do believe it is a commercial airliner, although that majority is starting to diminish as the vote goes on. So
I should have put drone as the first option, because the first option always gets preference. I should have flipped it around, but I'll go with that.
Man, you're gonna rig the election? What the hell?
It's gonna be rigged.
It's rigged. It's a rigged election. But let's see. Also, someone over here said aliens do not use red, green port starboard FAA lights. It's like, let's see here. What? This is the same thing my cousin saw and filmed last week in New Jersey, probably because it's a commercial airliner, I would assume. So that's what I'd have to say. It looks like a commercial airliner to me. Let me see if I can find y'all something else here as well, because this is always a fun segment. Let's see. Hang on. Hang on here. I'm trying to see what happened here. So it appears that a helicopter was chasing one of the drones. Although the video doesn't show a damn thing, which is pretty typical of that kind of stuff. Let's see here. Oh, yeah. Let's see. And that's kind of a good one. Scott Manley put this one out, which is kind of funny. It says, "I want to believe," and literally just shows a commercial airliner on approach at night to a runway. So you can kind of see where it's coming from.
But you see, look how far, look at, damn, boy, that lag, I'm telling you. But anyways, isn't it kind of funny, though? Like, the front, like, landing light, the white one, if we're not familiar with the terminology or anything like that, which I'm kind of not. That one is kind of very, very far forward compared to that other picture we saw, and the other landing light is very far back, almost at the point of the landing gear, it looked like.
Well, yeah, because there's two on one. Well, there's one on each side at the wing tip, you know, like the actual base of the wing or the root of the wing that projects forward along the fuselage. And then there's a landing gear light on the front landing gear that also projects a light directly down in front of the plane. So that's why it looks like that. If we go back to the other picture, if I can go and find it again really quickly, and I should just be able to scroll up and find it. Let's see here. Here we go again. So you can see the, let's see here. So you see the engine nacelles. I don't see the lights actually on. I believe that may be another light on board an aircraft. So let me go pull up the, let's see, lights on board commercial airliner in the U.S. And let's see if we can find it. So let's see here. Outboard lights. We want the outboard lights. So let's see here. Let's see what I can find. So, So here's what we have. This is a pretty good picture of an Alaska Airlines aircraft at night. The strobe lights, the navigational lights. It doesn't appear that any of the landing lights are on either in the wing bases or the wing roots or the front landing gear. So we can't see those in this picture. But to me, it just appears to be a commercial airliner through and through. Like, that's what I see. I see the fuselage of a Delta aircraft, the nacelles of a Delta aircraft, the navigational lights of an aircraft that is registered with the FAA without a doubt and was built to FAA compliance, so it has to be a commercial airliner. I don't know what that light is in particular right there, because it doesn't look to be a landing light, but it is most likely attached, well, it's not most likely, it is attached to the aircraft on the upper part of the fuselage from what it appears. But anyways, with that, it does appear that 60% of folks are saying it's an airliner and 40% are saying it's a drone. So it looks as though it seems as though most people are believing it is an airliner. So anyways, with that, we are going to be moving on from the whole UFO thing and on to the next one.
All right, so with that, we are moving on from the UFO thing, and we're moving on to this next super chat here, which goes to, let's see, Poco Loco, who puts in a $27 donation in. Thank you very much, Poco Loco, for that support. They said, much love from Maryland, that is. Also, can you go outside and take a picture of one of those drones for us, please? And thank you for that support.
And thank you so much for the support, and hello to Maryland, a very interesting kind of a place out there in the world. Y'all have so many cool cities like Annapolis and not Baltimore, and y'all also have Townsend and Cockeysville and Westminster and such memorable towns, if I remember correctly, as Cumberland, which is really cool because this is home to the Cumberland Gap, which is a really, really cool place in American railroading history because this is the Cumberland Yard. And this is a massive area that travels through the Appalachian Mountains and to the other side. To amazing place, Western Pennsylvania. Really, really cool when you think about it. But I do thank you so much for the support and being one of those folks that supports the Lee Spring Army all the way from the beautiful state of Maryland. I'm supposing it's very merry in Maryland. But with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have 4 super chats from GunFox61, the channel legend. He puts in a 20 each time for a combined total of $2, $4, $6, $80 in support. And thank you very much, GunFox, for the very generous support. And he has the days in history, and it's a lot. Let's see here. The first one says 1570, Sweden and Denmark signs Peace of Stettin. 1572, Spanish Army beats Guzenfleet, Confederacy of Calvinist Dutch nobles under Admiral Loomy. 1621, Emperor Ferdinand II delegates a first anti-Reformation decree. Also, 1636, the Massachusetts Bay Colony organizes 3 militia regiments to defend the colony against the Pequot Indians, recognized today as the founding of the U.S. National Guard. In 1734, Britain and Russia signed trade agreement. 1732, Prussia joins Austria and Russia in signing the Treaty of Berlin, a secret treaty. 1862, Battle of Fredericksburg, Virginia. 1861, Battle of Allegheny Summit, West Virginia. 1864, Battle of Fort McAllister, Georgia. 1864, War of the Triple Alliance. Paraguay officially declares war on Brazil. 1900, Battle of New Gedacht. Never heard of that one, actually. 1902, British and German ships bombard Venezuelan forts. 1906, German Chancellor Bernhard von Bülow disbands the parliament. And also, a question from the chat, please.
And thank you so much for the support, GunFox61, and the massive amount of rabbit holes that we can go into at this point, because it is a nice reprieve from talking about whether something is a commercial airliner or a drone. But to answer one of those rabbit holes, today is actually the day of the birth of the U.S. National Guard. Hey, let's go. The oldest part of the U.S. military, founded in 1636. It was founded before the English Civil War even happened, which is really cool when you think about it. And I also have to say that I thank you so much, once again, for reminding us of such an important day in American military history, as this is the day that the colonies first got their own official military, in a sense, in any way or capacity. So that's actually pretty cool, and I gotta thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I also like the back-to-back Civil War battles that happen on this day in different years as well. The Civil War was a very interesting time in American history, because a lot of people don't think about it, but it was just generally hell if you lived anywhere around Virginia or really anywhere along the Mississippi River. Beyond that, you were pretty good until 1864. Then you got screwed. But beyond that, it was pretty interesting of a war, really, in a sense. And also, let's see here. 1572. Let's see, the Calvinist Dutch nobles. The Dutch nobles actually were trying to break away from Spain for quite a while. It was actually Prince Maurice of Orange that would finally see the Dutch really gain their independence from Spain in 1600, as Prince Maurice of Orange would create a brand new tactic, largely bringing forward the pike and shot era and the age of pike and shot warfare, and that would actually get the Dutch their independence from Spain. Spain largely controlled the Netherlands and Belgium at that time. Another interesting thing, let's see here. 1734, Russia, Britain and Russia signed trade agreement. That was actually an interesting one. Britain was actually tied a lot more to the Russians. Really, the Western world was tied a lot to the Russians through the 1700s and 1800s in some ways, and not really so in others. It was more so of an economic alliance that was really created at the beginning of Peter the Great's attempt to westernize the Russian Empire, which never really succeeded, and they're kind of living in the aftermath of that failure even to this day. They're not entirely westernized, but they try, and try they do. But also, let's see here. 1902, British and German ships bombard Venezuelan ports. I actually do not know about that one, but I do know about the 1906 German Chancellor Bernhard von Bülow disbanding the parliament, because that was actually a pretty interesting thing, because for the remainder of the Imperial Germans' existence, they were pretty much run by a military junta from 1906 to 1918, when Kaiser Wilhelm II abdicated the throne and fled to the Netherlands, which is a very interesting kind of a thing, and he would live the rest of his life in exile in the Netherlands. But still, thank you so much once again for that incredible support, GunFox61, and throwing in loads and loads of rabbit holes for me to go down, because they're always incredibly interesting. I gotta thank you for the massive support that you've thrown towards the channel tonight and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it was not for folks like you, we would not be able to make this channel possible, and we wouldn't be able to go day in and day out covering this news 6 days a week, working like 80 hours a week to get this thing done. And so a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that incredibly well. And thank you for helping this live stream to keep ad-free and sponsor-free. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Snotty, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Snotty, for that $20 support, and we appreciate it. And they said, very simply, they said, LSA.
and LSA, baby! And I gotta thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, and thank you so much for enjoying the LSA massively, because it is folks like you who help this channel to keep on running and make this thing possible. And so a massive shout out once again. I gotta thank you so much once again for that incredible support, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
And we actually, guess what? We actually forgot to get GunFox61's live chat
Oh,
question.
hello.
We will be returning back to that one. And GunFox, we always do that on your super chats. We get so caught up with the days in history part of it that we missed the live chat. So we are returning back to that and getting that live chat question. And this one goes to Tyler Quinlan, who said, have you ever heard of the replicator program by the DoD? And you'll get your drone answers. Take a look.
And let's see here. The replicator program. Let's see here.
He sounds like a skeptic already.
Yeah, well, as soon as I heard replicator, I thought of the Star Trek replicator, and I was like, oh, buddy. But I'm going to keep an open mind here, so we're going to check this out. This is the Defense Innovation Unit. Let's see here. So what do we have? The Replicator Initiative is the DoD's effort to accelerate delivery of innovative capabilities to the warfighter at speed and scale through senior leader focus on solving a specific operational challenge. That is word soup as usual. So what is the actual goals? The DoD, through the Replicator Initiative, is developing an accelerated process that identifies key capabilities with significant operational impact and delivers them to warfighter at speed and scale. The result is a warfighter-defined investment funnel comprising novel operational concepts, prototyping and experimentation, and expeditious acquisition pathways aimed at creating on-ramps for new capabilities, systems, and industry partners. By leveraging non-traditional technology ecosystems alongside more traditional sources of defense capability, the DoD is adapting to integrate emerging technologies and methodologies to add the most military value while working to diversify and expand the base of American industry and technology companies. The replicator effort has demonstrated that a whole of government approach, as they say, combined with concentrated and sustained senior leader attention across the breadth of policy and system development, integration, and sustainment efforts, can get needed capability into the hands of our warfighters faster. So generally, this is just trying to really hurry up the development and funding process, which maybe is a explanation, but probably not so much, because if a new company was trying to develop drones for the government, they probably wouldn't ingratiate them with the government too much to start flying these over restricted airspace at pretty much every facility in New Jersey. I would say that would be a decent explanation if it wasn't for that fact, and also for the fact that quite literally everyone, it seems, in New Jersey is trying to figure out what's going on, and it doesn't appear that anyone has notified the government, well, not the government, but the governor, to pretty much downplay it, because it would be a national security risk to continue to upplay it and not know what's going on. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. Very interesting idea, though. Maybe it's the case. I highly doubt it, though. But thank you once again, GunFox61, for sponsoring this live chat and helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Marion Deemer, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Marion, for that support as always, and helping to keep this channel running on its own 2 feet. And Marion says, YouTube is not letting me send my message. Slava Ukraine and Hiram Slava.
And thank you so much for the support, Marion Deemer. We get that here and there. YouTube's apparently pretty picky with what can be sent in a message. But I do thank you so much once again, Marion Deemer, an old guard and a channel legend, for supporting the channel and helping us to keep this thing running, because if it was not for folks like you, we would not be able to make this thing possible and keep it running. And so a massive thanks to you so much once again, and I hope that does address that incredibly well. And I'm very sorry once again to hear that the message could not be sent in its entirety. But with that, we are on to the next one. All right, there we go, and we're on to the next one.
All right, so that lag is hitting harder than ever, but this one goes to Jason Hale, who puts in a 20, and thank you very much, Jason, as well, for that support. And Jason says, how would they fly or maintain those planes if Israel left them?
They generally, if Israel left them.
Yeah, he's talking about the Syrian ones. You know how the Israelis are smashing those Syrian planes?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, man, the lag's still bad. If I interrupted you there, sorry. But beyond that, I would say I'm sorry, y'all. The lag really threw me off there. I was about to give the answer, and then Matthew just started talking again because the lag just stopped the message and started again. So let me think really quickly. How would they maintain them? So they would get into the Western world. They would most likely get access to spare parts from Eastern Europe because Eastern Europe has a load of spare parts and also older defunct aircraft that they do not use that were former Soviet aircraft. So they'd probably be able to maintain them if they got into the Western world by keeping up a supply of spare parts from Eastern Europe, most likely, or even from Ukraine in some instances. And so with that, I hope that does answer that question fairly well, and I thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible, and we wouldn't be able to answer great questions like that. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Kush, who puts in a 20. And thank you very much, Kush, for that support. They said that the drones want to be seen, and why else would they sport directional lights? Intimidation of the public is apparently on the agenda. And also, love you guys, and keep up the great war news, and big love from Germany.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, and a big hello to Germany. Really cool country, really cool people. But beyond that, I do have to say it does appear that some sort of an attempt to draw public attention to this is on the agenda for whoever's doing this. We wouldn't know why that would be the case, but it does seem to be a priority for them. Hopefully we'll be able to get to the bottom of who's actually doing this and why here in the future, so that way we can actually get a better understanding of what's actually going on up there in northern New Jersey. But I still thank you so much for the support, and I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And also, a big thanks to you once again for that incredible support all the way from Germany. Germany is a pretty cool country. Also, I gotta say that your profile picture is pretty funny to me because it's Bugs Bunny, but it looks like he's been stung by a bee. And I gotta thank you for that because I find that to be really funny. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Zyper Sniper 1, the channel legend. He puts in a 20 as well. And thank you very much, Zyper Sniper, for that support. He said the drones over New Jersey have to land at some point, so the U.S. could try and follow it and then shoot it down over the ocean and maybe destroy the drone holder and carrier as well.
And I thank you for the support. The issue with that seems to be, from what we know, no one actually has infrared cameras or abilities, and also the federal government, which would be the one responsible for shooting down the drones, isn't really diverting any resources to be able to shoot them down. So if they escape into the sea, there really isn't anything that we can do, or at least the state governor of New Jersey can do to be able to deal with that. So for that reason, it doesn't really seem like that is a possibility at the moment without federal government involvement. That's still a good idea, though. I think that would be something that would be prudent. And it also would be necessary to find a way to be able to recover the remains of the drone and then start to gather important information about what kind of drone it is, what was its abilities, and who was actually operating it. So that way we can finally put to rest what are the drones and what are they doing. But I still thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one. But a big thanks to you once again.
Yes, indeed. And our next one here goes to Paul Liam, who puts in a 20. And huge shout to Paul Liam for that support. He said, how effective are the drone jammer guns?
Questionable effectiveness. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. In Ukraine, it almost seems as though they have like maybe a 30% chance to work, because almost every single video we see of anyone using an anti-drone jamming gun, they almost never work. And I think a lot of people have abandoned that technology, and that's why they moved on into the realm of shotguns to deal with them, because shotguns seem to have an even higher effectiveness rate, and also they're a lot cheaper in shooting them down. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And also, really quickly, I saw something that I was like, that'd be a good thing to address. Someone said, just a reminder that we, the people, run this government. No. That's really taking it a little bit too literally. The Constitution says we, the people, in order to form a more perfect union, and then pretty much lays out that the people are going to form a way the government works. The people don't have the authority to just go out and do whatever they want. They elect representatives that then represent the interests of the people, and then that's how the government works. We're a federal republic. So with that in mind, yes, the people run the country by voting for the representatives, but in the actual day-to-day administration and carrying on of national duties, it's the representatives that were elected that actually run the country. It's not the people themselves directly. This isn't Athens. This is the United States of America. So I hope that kind of addresses that fairly well, because like I get the idea that that's coming from, and I think it's a wonderful thing that the United States does have a democracy at all where people can vote for their representatives. But at the same time, though, usually that kind of a thing goes to, let's just usurp the government's power because it's truly the people who have the power. So we're for some reason going to conduct an insurrection against the government that we claim is supposed to be serving. It's like, that's something that, like, generally I'm like, oh, okay, well, you know, like, let's back up on that a little bit. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one. All right, we'll be waiting for the lag to subside here.
Oh, hello.
Hello there, and we're on to the next one.
And moving on to our next one here, this one goes to Lou Sassel, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Lou, for that support. They said, hey, the drones in New Jersey are air taxis being tested for the World Cup 2026 at MetLife Stadium. They can't talk about them because we're using them in Ukraine now, and they can fit 6 people per drone and go 200 miles per hour. I would say, Lou, that is a hypothesis. However, they would not be testing air taxis, a civilian drone like that, unannounced, and also flying them over the classified areas. I think that might mess the theory up just a little bit. But Enforcer, what say you?
Also, they wouldn't be testing them in absolute secrecy either, because if it's a commercial implication, there is no real expectation of any kind of great secrecy around the commercial application, unless if it had a government use. Also, I do not believe that I've ever seen those being used in Ukraine either, and a drone of that size and scale that could carry about 6 people would pretty much be a helicopter at that point, and pretty susceptible to being shot down anywhere along the front lines. I do thank you for the support there and sharing that with us, but I'm considering that to be implausible, because the company that would be conducting those tests would just say, it's us, and then all of the hype would pretty much subside and die off, especially considering that it is a commercial application. It's not really a military application. And so with that, I thank you for the support, and I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one. And hopefully, Matt, you can hear me when I say that this time. The lag isn't going to be making this about one business day connection here. And so we're on to the next one.
And we have a good connection for now. And this one goes to the Secret Vault, who puts in a 10. And that's like that secret vault that Geraldo went after that one time. And it wasn't so secret, and it wasn't so full. But they said, what happened to the Wagner Group? Any updates? And praise the LSA.
And thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I gotta say, I gotta tell you, and thank you once again. I thank it greatly. I think it's greatly. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep this channel running. Now, Matthew, really quickly, can you read his question again?
Yes, they said, what happened to the Wagner Group? Any updates?
The Wagner Group is practically dead. They exist, like, on paper as a Rosguardia unit, but we've never seen them conducting any operations at this point. They've done a little bit in Africa, but they're hardly even there to even count. So I hope that does address that fairly well. And I thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, folks, it's time to go over a history lesson again. I always love it when people come in and act like I don't know history. So it's time for me to school someone. Michael Payne put in caps and also said this in a very smart way that brushed me just the right way to make this a specific instance of why you never want to be so brazen and so rude about your point, because then you'll just sound stupid. So Michael Payne said, Germany's government, in all caps by the way, did not collapse. They lost a war. Do you need to go read some books? Okay, so first off, that is a very rude way to ask a stupid question. Second off, I'm not going to go off like I did last night, but generally I get very annoyed when people want to say something that's stupid. One, yes, Germany did lose a war, but in the process the government collapsed. If you need to go read books, you can, but if I remember correctly, everyone went running out of Hitler's bunker and elsewhere, also out of Berchtesgaden as well, trying to escape somewhere, either to hide like Heinrich Himmler did, and then ended up largely dying, or they all just ran for the hills, and then Hitler also, kind of like extinguished the flame within his soul. So then this guy called Karl Dönitz took over the government and then signed an unconditional surrender, because at that point the government had quite literally collapsed underneath everyone, and Karl Dönitz was the last guy left. That's the exact same thing that happened in Syria, is that rebel forces started to rapidly advance. Assad extinguished the flame of his existence in the government by fleeing without letting anyone know. Government officials went running for the hills everywhere. Some of them are being arrested right now. Some other ones are in hiding. But then the remainder, the prime minister that was left inside Damascus, then walked out and literally signed an unconditional surrender, just like Karl Dönitz did at the end of World War II for Nazi Germany. So if you want to really like mouth off like that, I can just sit here and take a good minute to tell you, yeah, you're entirely wrong. And having that kind of a mindset that you're right when you're that stupid, I don't really know how that works. And I mean to be rude to you. I haven't been rude to people until one person yesterday specifically. But if you want to actually talk like you know something, I highly suggest that you do learn something and know it a little bit before you tell me I'm wrong. Because I actually did spend my entire life learning history and then went to college to also then figure out that I pretty much knew history well enough to not really have to do a lot of work and just write off of my knowledge and then get A's. So just putting that out there, if you don't know history, don't put your stuff in all caps and act that rude because you don't know what you're talking about. So with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Ambi Pambi, who puts in a 10 and says regular T-shirts are okay for Alabama. In my country, we dress better. Oh, well, I do say that.
Oh, how dare you, sir?
How about pocket tees with front side, above pocket, small enforcer gas mask, or a gas mask, not a gask. Oh, and he said, I'm not going to lie under the mask. Just an idea. And love, Ambi.
And I thank you for the support, Ambi Pambi. And that actually is not a bad idea. We would like to make some nicer shirts because regular T-shirts are nice, but generally that is a fairly American thing. And a lot of people around the world generally have a more refined way of dressing casually. The best way to say, not casualty. That's not a good thing to dress casualty. You want to dress casually. So we might try and make something like that, but we heavily debated whether that would sell a lot because when it comes to merchandising, we have to be able to come up with something that sells enough to justify the limited edition run. And we do know that 54% of the American audience will wear a regular T-shirt, but we really don't know how many of them would wear a more so polo-like shirt or a T-shirt with a pocket on it. Although I do think that would be pretty cool, at least in my opinion. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. Thank you for the support, and thank you for throwing that in, because that is a very interesting idea, and that is something that we did throw around in the past. We actually threw around the idea of creating a LSA polo, like an actual polo-style shirt, and we might end up coming up with that in the future. Also, I've seen Donald Kaus say hoodies, and that's not a bad idea either. We have done hoodies in the past when our merchandising store ran entirely different, and we might do hoodies here in the near future. But still, thank you so much once again.
Hoodie would go very lovely right now because it's so cold out there. And also, we'd have the nice new hoodies, the nice premium hoodies, not the ones that we used to have, but the actually fluffier ones that are a little bit warmer this time. So I think that would go over much better.
Yeah, I would have to say it would be really nice to have a hoodie at this point, in my opinion. And so with that, thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running Ambi Pambi. I hope that does address that well, because we will be considering that as an idea for future merch releases. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Rangers Rule, who puts in a 10. And they said thank you for the hard work, and it appears that this will give Israel a clear path to Iran, and listening to Israel channels indicated thus, and thoughts.
And thank you for the support and helping the channel to keep on running. And I suppose that you could say that it gives them a clear path to Iran, but my argument is they had it already, because in the past we did see that they conducted massive air attacks on the Islamic Republic of Iran with their air force, clearly showing that they flew either directly over Jordan or Syria, meaning that they would have flown directly over Syria's quote-unquote active air defense, and it did not shoot them down. And generally, our understanding was, over the length of the entire Israel-Iran war since it's really kicked off in late 2023, is that the Syrians and the Iraqis have practically no usable air defense, and that largely has stood to be true through the test of time. The Iraqis and the Syrians have not shot down anyone's stuff from either side. But with this in mind, the Israelis bombing the Syrians, or the Syrian interim government, on a near everyday basis at this point isn't really doing anything to improve their striking abilities at Iran. It is only distancing the new Syrian interim government from the West, largely creating an inevitable foe that will rise out of the fall of the Assad regime and the creation of a new government that will, regardless of what happens, might become anti-Western because of its attacks that it's suffering by the Israelis. So I would say it was a good thing that the Assad regime collapsed, and that certainly did open the way to Iran quite easily, but then going aggressively against the Syrian interim government once it forms is not really a good move, in my opinion, on a diplomatic playing field. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and I thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one here goes to Bruce Kaiser, who puts in a 10. And thank you, Bruce. He said, why would they have any lights on at all?
I'm not really sure. Someone said that maybe to strike fear into the public, which may be a bit of an idea. I mean, like a little bit, possibly. But I don't really know why. Maybe I have no good explanation, to be entirely honest. I would have to declare ignorance on it because I wouldn't have a clue as to why they would actually be doing that at all. Or if someone in America was doing something a little bit weird with a drone or conducting some sort of a drone swarm, why would they have the lights on? Why wouldn't they just turn the lights off? So I guess it's just to strike fear and stir up the public's imagination in doing so, because I can't really think of any other good reason as to why that would be the case. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we've got one from Aztecian, who puts in a 10 and says, honestly, this may be a test, and hence why the Department of Defense didn't do anything, and these would have been shot down by now, and plus the government omitting themselves. And also, this is probably a testing phase for our military.
Maybe so. That's something that we were seriously considering until today, until we started to hear some other things that were coming out about the drones, such as they're coming from the sea. And now, if they were being launched from inside of America, their launch point would be indeterminate because they would most likely have been launched from Picatinny Arsenal, and that would be all there was to it. And while people would generally get an idea, they're kind of popping up in northern New Jersey, they might not really be able to pinpoint where due to the heavy forest cover that exists within this area of the state. However, the local law enforcement of the state of New Jersey have been able to identify that it appears that almost all drones are flying in from the sea, which would be a little weird, especially the United States was the one that was conducting these tests. Because if the United States is conducting the test, and obviously, especially if it's an army test for drones in the future, they would be conducting it from a land-based installation, but the drones are coming from the sea, which is possibly showing that it may be a foreign actor that's involved, and it's getting a lot more closer to the congressman's perspective that there may be some sort of a vessel at sea that may be launching the drones, and then they're flying on into northern New Jersey and really into the entirety of the area in between Maryland and New Jersey itself. So there is a decent argument to be had, at least for now, that the drones may still be of a foreign actor, and that's generally what we're believing at this point. Also, due to how the government is kind of keeping this hush-hush, a lot like they did with the Chinese balloons, we also believe that that's leading more credence to the idea that there is some sort of a foreign actor that's using these drones and not the United States itself. But still, I thank you for the support, and that is still not completely out of the question. It's just that with the totality of the evidence we got today, it does seem to be the case that the drones most likely are, if anything, more so foreign in origin than American. But who knows? May still be a government project, and they're just generally trying to create enough confusion around it to kind of cover up that it's something that the government is testing with drones being involved. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, I see some people discussing in the live chat here why they might have the lights on. And I think I see a pretty good theory that I would tend to agree with. Many people were saying, like Chris Harden in the live chat, they said the lights are probably on so that way the drones blend in and look legit to reduce curiosity. Because if the drones had their lights off, that would 100% indicate that something fishy was going on. So the lights do create some plausible deniability to make people think, oh, it could just be like a normal airliner or something like that, or it could be a small Cessna. But in actuality, it would be actually be a drone of maybe a foreign adversary. That's probably the most like realistic explanation for it. Because once again, why would anybody else be adhering to navigational lights and regulations from the FAA? That wouldn't make much sense at all.
I would say that I don't really know about that because the navigation lights are actually what really kind of like tipped everyone off in the first place. If they kept them off pretty much for everyone's purposes, they are practically stealth at that point. No one's looking up there to try and find the drones. So if they have all of their navigational lights off, it's not really like anyone seeing them in the first place. Turning on the navigational lights is kind of giving them away, and that's why we know that they're there, is because people kept filming their navigational lights on and saying that those aren't commercial aircraft, they're something else entirely, and they may be drones from some group of people that are in New Jersey, maybe the U.S. government, or maybe even something outside of America on its own. So I would say maybe, but I think the navigational lights actually gave it away.
Me personally, I don't think the lights gave it away. I think it was the way that the little crafts were flying. Because once again, a plane isn't going to come to a dead stop. If it did that, it would stall and it would crash. So when they're seeing these things move across the sky, especially over neighborhoods, and they're seeing these things come to an abrupt stop and then just hover, then that sort of gives away, hey, that's not a plane with navigational lights. That's a drone, and it's hovering over our neighborhood like that. And then they start filming it, and then from that point on, it created this hysteria about commercial airliners potentially being drones, and also the actual drones, well, they're not if they're using the same navigational lights or not. So it created confusion, and I think that might be the point behind it.
Maybe so. Maybe that is the case. Who knows? But one day we hopefully will find out, and hopefully this won't just be brushed under the rug. And when it's over, we actually will have a pretty clear answer as to what it was. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Skeeter K7TRD, who puts in a 10 and says, if these drones are of unknown origin, then why are no jets being scrambled?
Generally, probably because the drones are flying at such a low speed and aircraft really can't do anything to them. Usually that would be something that's tasked to a helicopter at that point. Or it may also be the case that the drones simply are not being detected on radar, as they may be blending in due to their small size with background noise, and so radars really just cancel them out, and for that reason, we really cannot see them to be able to send aircraft. Also, for that matter, the New Jersey Air National Guard has not mobilized any aircraft, but the state police have, and we understand that they have tracked some of these down with helicopters, but once these things turn off their navigational lights and evade the searchlight a little bit, they pretty much disappear into the darkness and are never seen again. So that's what we understand at the moment. Aircraft have been mobilized. It's just that no fighter aircraft have been. It's just really the helicopters of the state police. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least the best we can. And thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Mr. Spock, who puts in a 10. And it's good to have you, Mr. Spock. We need some logic.
Hey!
Mr. Spock says probably just some three-letter agency testing the reaction of people in face of an unusual phenomenon, and they must be laughing their asses off at people losing their crap about this. I would tend to not believe that, Mr. Spock, but first of all, thank you for the support. But I would say that they're probably not doing that just to poke the American people, because that would be creating chaos and pandemonium for absolutely no purpose and no benefit behind it. And I doubt they do it for the shits and giggles. They're probably doing it for some legitimate reason, but more than likely, it's probably a foreign adversary. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that it probably is not a three-letter organization, because there is no reason to test if the public gets scared, because everyone knows the public gets scared. That's just been seen through history. You know, pandemonium's easy to create in the public, so there's no reason to go, let's fly drones around and scare everyone in America and possibly cause a great deal of a concern for that reason. I would generally say that probably would not be the case. Also, really quickly, oh, there we go. I was having to check something with YouTube. I was like, hold up. But beyond that, I would say that's probably not the case. This probably is some form of a foreign actor that's involved with these drones, because otherwise I just don't really see it being the case that just for some reason the U.S. government would just want to put the citizenry in fear. Generally, they don't really do that at all, to be entirely honest. And then conspiracy theory people will be coming out of the woodworks going, oh, but they do. And they really don't, because the government has more important things like being reelected rather than scaring the shit out of the people who might reelect them. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Nick, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Nick. He said, is it possible that these drones are really ours and their purpose is to protect our cities because we're either worried about a Russian attack or are we about to escalate majorly on our side?
I doubt it. Usually drones are not really used in that form. Also, there really is no way that these drones can really protect any of these cities. The only thing that these drones really could do would be offensive, either intelligence gathering on outside powers or in the form of Ukrainian drones being FPV drone. Air defense in that kind of a smaller form at slower speeds is pretty much useless over a city like New York or northern New Jersey, because the missiles that would be flying in at such high speeds, hundreds of miles an hour, that a drone would never be able to catch it or intercept it. So for that reason, it's highly unlikely that these could be used to protect northern New Jersey or New York. I generally would say it's most likely still a foreign adversary, because there's really no framework at all that smaller drones with an 8-foot wide wingspan that don't really travel at incredibly high speeds could benefit national defense in that kind of a scenario. So with that, I thank you so much for the support, and I hope that does address that question incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Jack Ragnarsson, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Jack. He said, since Russia and Ukraine want Crimea so badly, do you think that Crimea could gain independence in a peace deal and given to the Crimean Tatars? And doubt Russia would accept that, though, or just reinvade.
I think that they probably wouldn't accept that. I don't think either side would accept that because it would almost be like the free city of Danzig of Poland before World War II, where it's neutrally aligned, but it's almost in the middle of a game in between the Polish and the Nazi Germans on who would have the most sway inside the city of Danzig. I think that's really what it would turn into if Crimea became independent, and I have a feeling that the Russians and the Ukrainians would start playing some pretty nasty games in that kind of a scenario, or pretty much just attempt to annex the Crimean Peninsula for themselves in the future, either the Ukrainians or the Russians. Another interesting thing to point out is that could end up being a hotbed for terrorism as well, because either side could start to sponsor their own individual terrorist groups that would exist inside of Sevastopol and try and use them to get back at the other. Not saying the Ukrainians would do that, the Russians without a doubt would certainly do something along those lines, and that would start to create a bit of a major issue in the long run with how that would end up turning out. So I would say it probably wouldn't be better to create an independent state out of Crimea. It clearly needs to go to one or the other. I don't know if Ukraine wants to give up Crimea at this point. It kind of sounds like Zelensky may be willing to, and then achieved a diplomatic recapture of Crimea, not a actual force of arms recapture. But honestly, it still is within Western interest for the Ukrainians to regain Crimea. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And I thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Jenna last name Tolls, who puts in a 10 and says, emergency alert, there's chemtrails in your fluoride.
Oh, man. I thank you for the support and helping the channel to keep on running, Jenna, last name Tolls. And also, that is, oh, man. I'm not even going to get into the whole conspiracy theory thing. I think y'all get an idea. I just generally don't like conspiracy theories, but that's a pretty good one. There's chemtrails in the fluoride. I was actually hanging out with one of the folks I know from reenacting, and I was talking to him a little while ago about some stuff that was going on in the world with the whole conspiracy theory thing, and we were laughing because there was a crop duster that flew over the place that he was at, and when they were doing a reenacting event, people were there, and this guy looked up in the sky, and he said, "Oh, you see it right there? He's doing it." And so he looked up, he said, "What's he doing?" "He's deploying the chemtrails. He's trying to control the minds of the people at the event." And the reenactor was like, yeah. And the guy wasn't crop dusting or anything. He was just flying, and he was flying at a high enough altitude at the time that it was creating a contrail. And so the guy, like, you know, that kind of stuff is legitimately crazy. We were both laughing at that horrendously. And then a plane actually flew over when I was about to leave, and he was like, "Look, a chemtrail, they're doing it." And we were busting out laughing at it. But still, I hope that does address that the best I can. Thank you so much for throwing in a pretty funny joke, though, about that. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Gunfox61 yet again, who puts in a 5 and says, 1975, USSR performs nuclear test at the Semipalatinsk test site in northeast Kazakhstan.
Northeast Kazakhstan? You mean northeastern Kazakhstan? Up here? That's interesting. I didn't know that. And where do you say it was again?
It's the Semipalatinsk test site.
In north, let's see here. Well, we have Gress 2. Ooh, Gress looks like hell. Like, that looks like an industrial hellhole. Where is Gress 1? Oh, right down here. Also industrial hellhole. What is this? What is this stuff? I don't even know. It has a 3-star review and only one, and it was from 6 months ago. What is this thing? So it's a coal power plant, and it looks terrible. It looks horrendous. I've never seen anything like this before. They just have a giant coal heap sitting out in the middle of the desert right here that fuels the plant. That is just, it looks gross because there's just coal dust spreading around everywhere. But beyond that, I do thank you for the support and sharing that with us. I don't know where the nuclear testing site is exactly, but I wish I could find it and take a good gander at it. But still, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Donald Kaus, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Donald, for that support. He said, I just wanted to let you know that I'm still watching, and y'all doing a great job. And Putin on the Ritz. And take one from the chat, and happy holidays to the LOC.
Oh, man, Putin on the Ritz is a classic. I got to thank you so much for the support. Thank you for letting us know that you're still watching and enjoying. I gotta thank you so much because as we're getting on into the holiday season, we gotta have that holiday spirit. Which every once in a while, I'm starting to not have the holiday spirit, responding to folks here and there. But I still thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, and thank you for letting us know that you're still watching and enjoying, and not only that, supporting the channel and helping us to keep this channel alive. And so with that, a big thanks to you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Rendezvous, or Rendezvous, it could be, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Rendezvous, for that support. He said, do you guys have any information regarding the Russian rocket scientist that was assassinated this week in Russia?
Yes.
You know what? You know what? That's the long arm of Budanov, who I think took him out. Am I right, Enforcer? Or am I wrong?
Yes, that was the Ukrainian Special Forces. Well, not the Ukrainian Special Forces, the Ukrainian Intelligence Bureau that took him out.
Yes, I figured it was. So it was the Budanov.
Yes, but from what I know, it was the deputy director of some sort of a rocket missile design bureau or something along those lines. He had been helping out with the modernization of Russian missiles, so Budanov had him offed. I'm going to be entirely honest with y'all. I don't really know if I agree with that one, because I know a lot of people are going to be like, but he designed weapons that killed Ukrainians. Like that one, though, it's like, is he the guy responsible for that, or is it more so the missile commanders that are putting in the coordinates of an apartment block? It's like, if you're going to assassinate anyone out of that whole chain of people who were involved with this, I don't think you should be assassinating the designer. I think you ought to be assassinating the actual people firing the missiles, because they're the ones who are actually responsible for the missiles hitting anything that is not military-based and civilian-based. This guy just happens to be working on the rocket project. That was one where I was like, I don't know. I feel like that one's starting to get into a little bit of a questionable territory with that one right there, because that's like saying, oh, you know, like with the United States of America, Russia is going to start assassinating people who work for skunk works because, you know, America is a threat to them, so they're going to start killing these people. It's like, that seems to be kind of crossing a line. Like, that is crossing a line to me, because it's like, why in the world are you trying to kill the designers of these weapons when you could just, you know, kill the people who are using them? Like, that seems to make more sense to me, because it seems as though you're crossing the line from military to civilian, and it's moving from a actual, more so an assassination on a military leader to just executing a civilian. Like, you know, like, it's like, I don't know. Like, I don't like that one. Me personally, I didn't like that one. I was like, that didn't really look that good, in my opinion. But, you know, that's just me. Like, on the other hand, though, I will say this. As far as Iran is concerned, the nuclear scientists are a target, because nuclear weaponry and also nuclear science is something that is very privy to a small group of people. So taking out Iran's leading nuclear scientist actually would be a big deal, because they actually know what those weapons are and what they're going to be used for, and are actively promoting the ability of Iran to become a nuclear armed power and create a weapon of mass destruction. But with just some random Russian, you know, like deputy chief of a design bureau, it's like, you know, who's also just working on possibly upgrading a missile. It's like, I don't know about that one. That one just seemed a little bit weird to me, to be entirely honest. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Astesian, who puts in a 5. And Astesian said, we got Krampus before we got GTA 6. Oh, yeah, we did, man. We got Krampus out here. I don't know when GTA 6 is coming out. Like, they've been stalling on that game for some time. I think they say it's coming out in October of 2025, so it's like several months away. It keeps getting pushed back every single time. And at this point, it seems like they should probably just go ahead and release the game and fix it as they go, like pretty much every other game developer does, and let us have it already. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say, thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And it is crazy to think that we did get Father Frost, Krampus, and also Partisan Santa before GTA 6. It's taking so freaking long. I think by the time GTA 6 comes out, everyone who would have wanted to have bought the game will have been so old they don't want to buy it anymore. That's my honest take. But still, thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that this addressed that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 5 from Neighborhood Bully Exploration. They're exploring the neighborhood bullies. And they said 5.00 to be Putin out their lights.
What does that mean?
Putin's going into the light business. He's going to provide some illumination on that corruption. You know what I mean? Putin's big into that.
He's very big into that. He's the ringleader of it, so he's certainly going to be putting some exposure on it. But still,
Puts a flashlight on his own face like a horror movie. Like, here we are.
you saw it split. But with that, thank you for the support of this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Pluzat, who put in a 5. And Pluzat said, I was just about to go to sleep, but I'm going to watch for a bit. And here's to the Double Coffee Fund.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, Pleasoth, and thank you for watching for just a little bit longer and supporting that coffee fund and helping this channel to keep on running. Because it is, after all, folks like you who help to make this channel possible and keep it running. And so with that, a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to the B Night 3, who puts in a 5 as well.
Hey!
And says, the port cities of New York City area are logistics hubs. And I assume they're talking about that because they are trying to figure out why the drones are around there as well. And I would say this, they could be there for the logistics hubs and trying to figure out our shipping and things like that, or they could be there to inspect the giant oversized rats I've never seen anywhere else in the world hanging around New York City subways. They could be there for that also. They're trying to perform experiments. But, Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that they're probably not actually concerned about the ports of New York. That's actually a very good, plausible theory, and I thank you and applaud you for coming up with that, because that is actually genius in my opinion, and seems like it would be a smart thing. However, I think the more pressing question from foreign adversaries is how the hell are people even living in northern New Jersey? I mean, New Jersey is like a toxic hellscape, right? Like, that's at least the jokes I hear about New Jersey. I've never been there myself. But how in the world are people actually living up there? And it's probably a question that many scientists have not been able to answer to this day. Are they living up there through some sort of radioactive osmosis? Are they living through some sort of a biological photosynthesis of a kind that allows them to survive on the hellish landscapes of northern New Jersey and the toxic wasteland that it is? What is the actual answer to this question? And nobody knows. Everyone knows how the Port of New York functions, but nobody really knows how people are living beyond New Jersey's shores and actually within this very interesting area of northern New Jersey. They may also be trying to figure out, where did all the bodies go? Of the mob hitmen? You know, they had to put them somewhere, and they either put them, according to the Sopranos, in the Pine Barrens, which I believe is down here, or they put them somewhere up in northern New Jersey, somewhere around these little lakes and such things. We have to find an answer to this, and I believe that.
At least in Old Jersey. At least it's New Jersey. You don't want to know what happened in Old Jersey.
Well, I'll tell you, man, Old Jersey just is not that impressive. Introducing to you Old Jersey.
There's Old Jersey. Look at that. It was very small, like the real New Jersey.
It is tiny, an itty-bitty place. And it's just so small. It's actually closer to France than it is to Britain. But technically,
who owns this?
Britain.
Oh, Britain owns it.
Yes, the UK owns this island.
Oh, congratulations.
And then there's this other island up here called Guernsey, which is a very interesting island in itself. But yes, Jersey and Guernsey, the island of Guernsey and Jersey, are both controlled by the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
Interesting. That's pretty nice. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, like, not bad. But beyond that, we know how people live in the old Jersey. But we just don't know how people are living in New Jersey. I'm just kidding, by the way. I want to go to New Jersey one day and check the place out. I've never been able to go there. Someone said, Enforcer woke up and decided to choose war with New Jersey. I'm just kidding. For some reason, as a kid, every single show that we used to watch would, like, just take massive dumps on the city, on, like, the state of New Jersey. I don't know why they would, but I just always remembered those jokes because they were honestly kind of funny. I remember that Star Trek even used to make fun of that place back in the day, man. Do you remember The Next Generation when the scientist from the past stole a time machine and tried to steal data? And he was like, I'm taking you to a little place called New Jersey or something like that. And it was like, you know, it was supposed to be like a terrible place or something like that.
Oh, yeah, man. I remember that one.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with people just trashing on New Jersey, but I decided I'd carry on the fine, upstanding tradition of trashing on New Jersey tonight. Although, honestly, there's really nothing wrong with it. It's just that for some reason it got a bad rap at some point, and people just keep going with it. But anyways, with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to the Eye of Joe, who puts in a 5. And they said, whatever happened to those Russian ships that went to Cuba?
They went home. They went there, they hung out for a while, and then they went straight back to Russia. And so with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Mr. Spock. Once again, Mr. Spock, help me, Spock. He puts in a 5, and he says, why would a foreign government fly drones with lights on? Seriously, thank people.
Probably just to scare people, I would assume. So with that, I hope that does address that well. And I thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. But also, if they were government drones, why would they be violating the airspace of multiple military bases in New Jersey? They would just violate the airspace of the one that they were approved to violate the airspace of. So that largely is showing that it may be foreign in origin. So with that, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Rendezvous. Once again, he puts in the 5 and says, great streams. I just wanted to mention the map marker for North Maryland sighting is in the wrong spot, and the video associated is for Anne Arundel County.
And I thank you for the support. I just threw it in Northern Maryland. I didn't really care to geolocate that one. So I thank you for sharing that with me and letting me know. But generally, I just threw it up in Northern New Jersey because I was like, yeah, you know, it'll count. It's in Northern New Jersey, and that's all that counts. Well, Northern Maryland, and that's all that counts. So with that, thank you for the support. Thank you for correcting that, though, and letting me know. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Midwest, who puts in the 5 and says, it looks like the Pterodynamics XP4 Transwing drone. It kind of does look like it, doesn't it? Maybe a little bit, but the only problem is we don't have a super up-close image. But Enforcer, can we pull that one up? Can we take a look? Let's see a picture of this beautiful one.
And how do we spell that?
It's like a pterodactyl with a P at the front, like Pterodynamics.
Ptero drone. Let's see if I can pull that up here. The Pterodynamics XP4, is that what we're looking for?
Yes, Transwing.
Let's see. The Transwing Sizzle?
Sizzle. I don't see anything about a sizzle.
Well, I saw something about a sizzle. You want to see it? You want to see it?
I want to see it.
This is the Pterodynamics XP4 Transwing Sizzle video.
Oh, it's a sizzle video. It's to like woo ya.
Woohoo! Here's the drone, by the way. Here it is. Look at it. Dude, sizzling.
I've actually seen these before. It turns into a fixed wing drone in the air. Kind of like an Osprey kind of like design, but a little bit different.
Maybe this is what it really is.
I'm doubting it.
Are you sure? Maybe it's fallen angel tech.
Man, you're starting to sound like the History Channel.
Maybe it's aliens from another world? No, it's not. It's just people did it, you know, or something. But there it is.
See, though, they're testing this one out in the desert. Like, this is typically where you test stuff. Like, you don't go in the middle of a city and secret air bases and stuff like that and fly it over it.
Yeah, look, it's just a couple of guys hanging out at some wooden tables doing some arts and crafts kind of stuff here. Like, this isn't anything that would be clandestine, like we're seeing in northern New Jersey. Maybe it is, but I'd assume it probably is not. But still, thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Jenna, last name Tolls, once again, who puts in a 5, and says, it's the spaghetti monsters, minions, said one fellow who owes $1 billion. But Enforcer, what say you?
Well, I thank you for the support. I would say it's probably not, I would say it's probably not that. Anything that has to go with something honestly nonsensical, it's not going to be the case. It's not fallen angel tech. It's not, you know, it's not aliens. It's nothing like that. I'll say this. I think the reason why, folks, because my patience is like you know, some of y'all may be seeing it's kind of wearing down. I do not have patience for fantasy stuff, like at all, even in like just trying to enjoy it for fun. Very rarely am I ever able to enjoy anything that's fantasy. The only thing is I've enjoyed that's fantasy are Warhammer 40K and Helldivers. That's it. Beyond that, I just cannot stand anything fantasy related. And conspiracy theories, in my opinion, fall usually under fantasy related stuff. So if anyone says it's angel tech or anything like that, I actually lose a lot of patience because I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, because usually I think, like, you know, it's a full-grown adult. A full-grown adult ought to have a actual full-developed functional brain, and I just find it crazy to believe that a full-grown adult with a developed and functional brain will believe silliness like it's a fallen angel tech. So apparently angels are no longer like they are in the Bible, these transcorporeal beings that can just appear and also travel in between realms. They now create physical items that not only are floating, but they also follow FAA regulations and guidelines for navigational lights for air safety, which is just crazy to me that people would somehow make that work. Or, you know, other people say it's aliens, like aliens are going to create something that we can easily identify as a drone of some kind. You know, like it's It's crazy to me. And also, I see, Matthew, you're like, it's a joke, but it like we were joking about it, but it really does blow me away. And I'll be honest, it like, whenever I see that unironically being stated, it drives me crazy. It really does. But I do thank you for the support, and I thank you for throwing in the joke. But I'll be honest, the actual seriousness of people who say that, it wears me down so much that, like, I'm just salty about it all day, because I'm like, it's crazy to me that people can believe this stuff. Because many of y'all will know, I work in a very realistic framework. There's no shadow governments. There's none of that stupid business. It's just how things work in real life. I like to work in a very practical sense. And so when people seriously say that kind of stuff, I'm like, you got to be kidding me, right? Like, there's no way you can believe this stuff. And then, like, people will seriously believe this stuff and come in here and then say it to us and then act like we're stupid because we don't believe the whatever kind of, like, psychotic rant that they make. And I'm like, that's just not what we do. You know, like, I'm not one for that. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And Andrew Honeycutt said, so alien lizards aren't among us? No, that's actually not that true. Mark Zuckerberg's still here. But the next one goes to Luke Bowers, who puts in a 5 and says, sorry, I'm reporting late. I overslept. Good to see Ukraine air defense doing so well, and we have those drone sightings all over the UK too. It's very odd.
And thank you for the support. I've never heard of them being cited in the UK. That's actually very interesting. And I thank you for the support and letting us know that, because now we will be looking into that a little bit as well and trying to see what's up with that. Because so far I've only heard about the New Jersey area. Right before we went on stream, there was some stuff going on possibly in the Olympia area in Washington. But now also in the UK. So that's fairly interesting. And I'll be trying to look into that a little bit more and see if we can get some info on that. But still, thank you once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to the original Mr. Wiggle. And I'd like to know what happened to the other Mr. Wiggle. But the original one put in a 5, and thank you very much for the support. He said, check out the Western Maryland Scenic Railroad. Also, the actual Cumberland Gap is in Virginia. And what you were thinking of is the Allegheny Pass.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you are. Wait a minute, hang on. Are you right or am I right? Because I'm fairly certain that the Cumberland Gap railroad route on Train Sim World is through here. I am fairly certain of that, and I might be wrong. Let me check. No, I have a fairly strong feeling that this is the route. Trying to see here. I don't know. Actually, you know what? I'm starting to question it because it's not as bendy as the original route I remember. But beyond that, let me go look at the Western Maryland Scenic Railway. Let me go type that in.
Would you like the salt and pepper to eat your foot?
Yes, I would. Please, like additional salt and pepper. Yummy. But beyond that, let's take a look. Oh, wait a minute. I think I've heard of this one, specifically looking at that locomotive. Also, look at this. Now, this appears to be a scenic railway that's booming right here. They got all kinds of nice business. Also, take a look at that.
Oh, yeah, baby, that's real scenic right there.
That is scenic. That really is scenic. Also, look at this. Oh, amazing.
Yeah, I like that one. I like that grass is so green. They're mowing it every day.
Dang, actually they are. Like, no joke. It's like in the middle of nowhere, it seems. But also, holy moly. Is that a Chesapeake and Ohio, like, H6? No, it's not. It's an Allegheny, isn't it? Like, yeah, it looks like one. That is really cool. That is sick, honestly. Unequivocally bussin' sick even. That looks like an SD60. They actually have some nice stuff at the Western Maryland Scenic Railway. Maybe one day I'll be able to make it up here and see it for myself. But I swear that this is an Allegheny right here that they have at the Western Maryland Scenic Railway. But man, the pictures of it that they have, they look pretty freaking nice. Like, I'm like, wow, that's actually really impressive right there. Let's see, what else do they have? Ah, yes, a nice railway coach. The scenic. Oh, that one is rough. I'm not gonna lie. What is this? An old Norfolk Southern SD60. I guess they repainted it or something. And that's the one that they have on their scenic railroad now. Oh, look, that must be what they repainted it to. That actually looks really nice, actually. But let's see here. What else do we have? We have a tender.
Oh wow, they made those train cars look super nice in that picture that was above this. Wow, that was some nice cars.
I don't see it.
It was up at the top. The lag probably like drug it away. Let's see here.
Oh, this one?
There it was. Yeah, that's nice. I look at that. It's like first class.
Man, that's what they used to all be like. Like that used to be even like standard class back in the 50s and the 40s. Like it was very, very nice. Wouldn't that be nice if Amtrak was like that these days?
Oh yeah. Now if Amtrak was like that, I wouldn't have been griping about Amtrak. Like I'd have been pretty happy with it. I'd been like, oh look, the carpets are clean, the chairs are clean. It looks like they put some effort into it and things like that, and the bathrooms aren't nasty. I'd actually liked Amtrak.
And look at this.
Oh yeah, man, look at that. They got recliners up in there. Look at
Yeah,
that.
I know. Like, it was so nice back in the day. It was legitimately nice to travel by rail. Amtrak is okay, but it really does need a lot of help and improvement to be better and make it viable for the public. But, like, it used to just be so much better. Like, I don't know why people wanted to abandon the railroads, because it wasn't like it was bad. It was actually pretty nice, and you didn't have to go through all the effort of having to drive yourself from place to place and know where you're going. The train just took you there. It was very easy. It was a simple way of living. It was a simple life. And I liked it. And I wish it'd come back, honestly, because I like the trains. And I think they're really nice, and they were incredibly nice back then. Look at this. Look at this, Matthew. Isn't this nice? Isn't it nice? Isn't it?
Now this one right here is stuck in another era. I think it's stuck in like the 70s or 80s or something like that. I think the brown leather is my thing.
The brown leather isn't your thing. You say, that's what you say with your words, those words. But let's see. What else do we have? I'm trying to see if I can find some other... Oh, here's an observation car.
That's pretty nice. I like the observation. I don't know about the chairs, but I mean, it's pretty good. The red tablecloth did it for me, though.
Yeah, the red tablecloth, you know, it's not the greatest thing. You know, it's not the greatest. Let's see here. Well, let's see. I think that's enough of the Western Maryland Scenic Railway. There's a load of...
Oh, Jack. Oh.
What?
Oh, I thought I saw something different there for a minute. I was like, what the hell was that?
Nah, that was just a woman, Matthew. I know that's very unfamiliar to you and me, but that was just a woman. Oh, anyways, with that, it is time for us to move on into the next question. But still, thank you for sharing that with us. And also, what was the other part of his super chat, Matthew?
Let's see here. Let me go back and find it. Let's see. Oh, that's right. It was the original Mr. Wiggle. Let's see here. And that was the whole thing.
Well, I thank you so much for the support. I hope we were able to address that well. And also, folks, that was a self-burn. You don't really get that a lot. But still, I hope you all enjoyed the self-burn that I gave to both of us right there. I think they call that martyrdom in video games, where you drop a live grenade when you go down, so you take everyone out. But with that, I thank you all once again for enjoying that joke. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Kimberly Brokaw, who puts in a 100. And thank you very much, Kimberly, for the massive support, and we appreciate it very much. And sadly, though, I don't see any comment attached to it. But Kimberly, that is very generous of you, and seriously, we appreciate it. You help to keep us running, and it means a lot. And Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta thank you so much for the support, Kimberly, and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we would not be able to keep this channel running and make this thing possible. And so with that, a big thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And let me go ahead and put one more thing here in the spreadsheet, and we'll move on to our next one, which goes to Call Me Trey, who puts in a 5 and says, if they are Russian, what do you think our response will be?
Well, I don't know what the response would be at that point. Probably a major diplomatic protest, maybe more support for Ukraine, but I don't believe that we would be going to war over something like that, because the Chinese flew a balloon all the way clear over the United States, and it didn't really amount to much of anything in the end. But still, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and with that, we are on to the next one. And I think we're going through another lag spike again. Hopefully Matthew comes back through the lag. We are hoping and praying that he comes back through the lag any minute now. And let's see here. 1 second. I'm going to actually see about restarting the call.
Damn, son, this is a bad one.
This is a rough one. 1 second. I'm going to see about restarting the call. Maybe that'll help. Usually it doesn't, but we will see. So let me see here really quickly. 1 second. And how about now?
Okay, I can hear you now.
All right, and let me make sure to get that screen share going again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and this one goes to Jam Fan WP Dad, who puts in a 5 and says the intelligence community knows what the drones are, and they just aren't going to tell us. And these people know when Putin farts, and they know what these are.
And I would agree, they probably do know what they are at this point, and they may just consider that it's not a major threat, or there isn't really an easy or a good way to deal with them at the moment, considering that most of them are flying over residential areas inside the United States, and falling debris could cause injuries. So with that, I thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, and I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Mr. Spock, who puts in a 4. Mr. Spock says mass psychology experiment. And also, he said it's a store citizen before the game crashed. I'm sorry about your game crashing.
And I'm sorry to hear that your game crashed, but still, thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible and keep it rolling. And so with that, a big thanks to you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Mulder Channel, who puts in a 2 and says the Brits are present and ready, enforcers. And it sounded to me like the Brits were ready and present. Your generals over there, they are more than happy to get into a tangle with Russia, and I applaud that, actually. It's good to hear some actual, good fighting spirit occasionally. People are willing to stand up for something. It's good to hear that. And it sounded like the Brits were willing to do it. So thank you very much for that. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And of course, the Brits are always ready and one of the closest allies to the good old US of A. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to LSA Sergeant Figment, who puts in a 2 as well. It says, LSA, hit the like button. That's an order.
And I got to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible. And please do hit the like button. We've gotten up to nearly 3,000 likes, and that is an order. So with that, thank you so much once again. And also, Matthew, I just saw that they renamed Gomel to Omiel.
Omiel? Well, when did they do that?
I don't know. I just saw that, though. I think they may have literally just done that last night, because I have never seen Gomel called Homiel in English. He always was Gomel, Gomel.
Hey, good on them for that, because I don't know how they have time to do that during a war, but, good on them.
Man, they're about to name this thing Hormel, like the food company, man. Like, I don't know what that is supposed to be. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Uncovered Cube, who puts in a 2 and says, trolley popsicles, hot dog manish, they LMAO, they are odd.
They are odd. I will agree with that. And so with that, thank you so much for your support. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to VC Slim, who puts in a 2, along with Mark Andre Burnett, who also puts in a 2. And huge shout out to the both of you for that support and helping the channel to keep on running. And we also have a 2 from Philip A. Demick, who said, might they be our drones preparing for Ukraine?
I would doubt it, because that would usually be done at testing ranges that are in controlled environments and not over residential areas in New Jersey, and also multiple different military arsenals, largely without the permission of those arsenals or bases, and also notifying local law enforcement when it happens. And so with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. Thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have 2 super chats from Mulder's Channel, who puts in a $2 donation each. And thank you very much once again for that support. They said, Enforcers, take a look at the Dragonfire. And also, is it true U.S. as cloaking tech ships?
No, we do not have cloaking tech ships. I don't think that technology ever exists, or has ever existed, or even attempted to exist. And also, let me see what the Dragonfly is. Let's see here. Not now. The dragonfly is an insect, but we were probably looking for something else. Do you know what specific dragonfly we are supposed to be looking for, Matthew?
So they said the Dragonfire. I'm not sure if that's like a drone or something. Let me check. Dragonfire.
I believe that is...
That's the British directed energy laser weapon, actually.
Yeah, that's actually what I was about to say. I was like, oh, wait a minute, that is that laser weapon. And yes, the Dragonfire. Pretty cool little system. I believe these are going to be mounted on board Royal warships of the Royal Navy, which is pretty neat. But yes, this is a very neat system. It literally is just a large laser that you can fire at an object and largely diffuse the round or destroy it mid-flight. So it's going to be largely taking the role of CWIS systems on board British warships on into the future. And also this has a dual service role as well, being able to be used to knock out the propulsion systems of smaller vessels like kamikaze boats. Also, this thing is incredibly cheap to use, far cheaper than a CWIS ever has been. And so with that, I hope that does address that well and look into it fairly well. And thank you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Mr. Spock once again, who puts in a 2 and says, Game of Drones.
And I suppose so. That's actually a pretty good play on words right there. And I got to thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it was not for folks like you, we would not be able to make this thing possible. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Andrew Honeycutt, who puts in a 2, and a huge shout to you, Andrew, for that support. He said, let's see here. So sadly, Andrew Honeycutt, I can't read this one. Honestly, I would actually have to agree with you, but I can't read it, sadly. But Enforcer, what say you?
Let's see here. Let me see if I can find it really quickly. Let's see here. Let's see here. 1 second. I don't have the menu open. So I'm trying to find it really quickly, and I'm not able to see it on the YouTube menu. So, let's see. Is it the one that says, the Enforcers are awesome?
No, it's not that one. This is more critical of a podcaster, actually. Somebody whose show you actually want to go on for a little while.
Oh, well, I thank you for the support. I don't really want to go on the show, so just to make that clear, I don't want to go on the show. If we ever somehow made it onto the show, I would be fine with that. But I would say I'm going to have to say no comment on that one because I certainly see where you're coming from. But still, thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Gandalf, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Gandalf, for that support. He said, what is the windowless skyscraper at 33 Thomas Street, downtown New York City? That is actually an AT&T switching station, I believe. And also, there's some rumors that it could be housing some servers maybe for the NSA, but that's just a rumor. But it's a very ominous-looking building, and it's built to withstand, I think, a nuclear explosion, actually, if this is the correct building. So let's take a look.
And let me see here. Let me see if I can put that in. Here we go. It's the AT&T Long Lines building right here. And also the giant holes in the side, I believe, are ventilation ducts, if I remember correctly.
I believe you're right. And also, am I correct? Is this building built to withstand a nuclear explosion? I think it's built to withstand pretty much anything. So that way, if something apocalyptic did happen, that the phone lines could still work.
I'm not really sure. Let me go check that. Let's see here. AT&T Long Lines building. Also, sorry everyone, I'm feeling kind of lightheaded tonight, so that may be why I'm a little bit more quiet and not chipper. But let's see here. It's a telephone exchange. Let's see here. Blah 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 blah. It's built in 1969. Blah 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 blah. Telephone switching. Let's see, architecture. In the brutalist style and completed, it's generally been praised, seeing as a rare building in its type, makes sense architecturally, it blends into surroundings more gracefully than other skyscrapers nearby. I don't really know about that. I mean, the thing's pretty ominous looking. It looks like Lord Farquaad's castle from Shrek, honestly. Like, it's like, I don't know about that assessment. But let's see here.
That's right. That's right. It was the reason why I said it was NSA of some sort is I think maybe I'm trying to read it down here at the bottom to try to refresh my memory on it. I think in some of the leaks of Edward Snowden, it was revealed that maybe this building had something to do with one of the projects that the NSA had or something like that. I can't remember for certain, but it had something to do collecting data, if I remember properly. I might have that wrong.
Let's see here. Interesting. But beyond that, it was designed to protect itself from nuclear fallout for up to 2 weeks after a nuclear blast. I don't think it was meant to survive a nuclear blast, but it could survive the fallout from a nuclear blast.
Interesting. Well, yeah, it looks like it definitely could. It's built like a brick house, so it's pretty solid.
I gotta go, dude. I gotta go do this. I gotta go pull up Lord Farquaad's castle, because I'm not gonna lie. I feel like they built this thing, designed this thing in the Shrek thing to look like it. Like, doesn't this look similar?
Yeah, it honestly does. I don't even remember what this guy's castle even looked like. I didn't even know he had one. So, yeah, it looks pretty similar.
Dude, this is where the E-Man lived. You know what I'm talking about, man? You know that stupid meme that was really popular? Let me go get it. Yeah, here we go, Matthew. It's where the E-Man lives. This guy right here.
The E-Man. No, I've never even seen this. Is that Markiplier?
Yeah, that's Markiplier on Lord Farquaad's head, and it just had the letter E on it. And this meme made the rounds, dude. Like, in 2016, like, this was everywhere.
It actually, like, oddly enough, it fits his face fits the body and everything. It's weird. Like, even the haircut fits it.
Yeah, it's bizarre, isn't it? It's a really weird meme. But anyways, I thought I'd show y'all that just in case y'all hadn't seen the E-Man, and also y'all weren't getting the reference to Lord Farquaad's castle, but it really does look like Lord Farquaad's castle, at least in my opinion. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. Thank you all once again for listening to that weird rabbit hole. That had to have been one of the weirdest ones we've ever talked about. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Andrew Honeycutt, once again, who puts in a 2. And huge shout out to Andrew for that support. And also, no worries about the last one, by the way. I wasn't like trying to like be snarky or something. It's just that we don't want to like get at odds with even more YouTubers, because we're already enemies with so many for no reason whatsoever.
Many.
So we don't want to create another one. But honestly, though, I do have my feelings about the guy, but I'm going to keep it to myself, because I think the Enforcer might want to go on the guy's show. So I'm going to keep it to myself. But this one goes to Andrew Honeycutt, obviously. He said, "Emergency alert, the Enforcers are awesome."
And I gotta thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Andrew Honeycutt. And thank you for saying such kind words, because you're awesome as well. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one right here, which will be our last one, is going to go to BPM, who puts in a 2 and says, "Enforcer Matt, thanks for doing what you do. And thank you, BPM, for the kind words as well, and I appreciate it. And thank you very much for supporting the channel as well. And guess what, BPM? You're going to take us right into the live chat segment, because you were our last super chat, the last one, the long-lasting super chat segment. And now we're going to get into our live chat questions. I don't know what happened tonight, but we didn't have any Morse code decoders put in the Morse code tonight, sadly. Unless I missed it. It's possible I missed it. There might be one popping up somebody, "Hey, wait a minute, you missed it." And if I did, let me know. But I didn't see it personally. But wow, I've oil up by the Slayer Man. Oh boy. But anyways, we are now moving on to our first live chat question, which goes to AI Jenkins. It's Jenkins. He said, "When Russia falls, what will happen to the nukes?"
They will be inherited by the next state that takes Russia's place. So whichever one's kind of the biggest and has the greatest claim to being the successor to Russia, they'll get the nukes. When the Soviet Union collapsed, the Soviet Union inherited, well, the Russian Federation inherited all of the nukes of the Soviet Union, or they dismantled them if they couldn't afford to keep them or they didn't want them. So I hope that answers that question well, and we are on to the next one.
Also, MJSBBS said, "I don't understand why other channels would be against this one. It doesn't make sense. I don't know why anybody would be against me either. How could they be against the cult of Matt like that? It makes no sense. None at all. But it makes a lot of sense when you consider jealousy." But moving on to our next one here. This one goes to O-Tubes, who says, "Is there anything top secret in that area where the drones are flying over New Jersey?"
Yes, Picatinny Arsenal. We cannot bring it up time and time again. Y'all know what was made at Picatinny? Picatinny rails that you see on a lot of the rifles nowadays. That's from Picatinny. Picatinny Arsenal. Picatinny. Like you pick a 10 picky. You know, like it's just what it is. It's an amazing place, a place of magic and charm. And there's loads of cars to park here every day because they get to work here at this Arsenal and they come up with the absolutely greatest stuff. And there's a neighborhood right here as well on Berkshire Valley Road, and you can see that they have a bottle shop right here as well, where you can go and buy yourself bottles, pizza, deli, and catering, and also this weird leg symbol up here as well. That's grab and go meals. You know, it's I don't know, very kind of a lot of legwork involved in making that logo. But beyond that, I hope that does answer that question well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one here is going to go to Knox Date, who said, "With it always being tense between China and Taiwan, do we think the conflict could start next year, or are there still more for China to do to pull it off without failing?" And LSA.
And LSA, and there is still more for them to do. We believe that the diplomatic tensions are high enough at this point that it could happen at any point, but China is still limited by its naval abilities, and their naval abilities to be properly fleshed out enough to be able to conduct a somewhat successful invasion of the island Taiwan will most likely put the invasion back towards the late 2020s, sometimes around 2029 or 2028, or maybe even on into the 2030s itself in the early years. And so with that, I hope that does address it the best I can, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Mad Machine, who said, "Do you have any update on when Russia will run out of gas and diesel for civilian and military use?"
At this time, we really do not. We do not know the exact levels of Russian oil and gas surpluses, but generally, as long as it's running a overall deficit, eventually they will run out. We just do not know when. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Mr. Frost, who said, hey, Matt. Oh, hey, Mr. Frost. He said, do you know if Ukraine is still losing much territory to Russia these days? Because the media is all over the place.
Not really. They lose a small amount, maybe here and there, but when I mean small, it's quite literally small. I'm talking about slivers of maybe a couple thousand square meters of ground, which isn't really that big, and it's at the cost of thousands of Russian lives whenever an advance like that is made. So generally, they aren't. Generally, the front line is just stagnant. It's quite literally like World War One. People are dying all over the place, and there's really no ground being made at all by anyone. But that's kind of the situation on the ground. So if you ever hear anyone saying, "Oh, the Russians or the Ukrainians are advancing rapidly and crushing the other side on the battlefield," that's just not true at this point. Now, the Ukrainians can crush the Russians in other ways, and the Russians can try and crush the Ukrainians in other ways, but frontline success and progress you'll just never see anymore. And so with that, I hope that addresses that well, and we are on to the third to last question of the night.
All right, and this one goes to Jexa de Sin, who said, have you heard anything about certain parts and places in Syria actually asking for Israeli occupation or annexation?
Yes, there was a video that went out that was really popular, but here's the thing I have to say about this, not to disclaim it, but I'll explain what I mean by it. There was a group of Druze people, and some guy stood in the middle, and he said that he wanted the Israelis to control and own their land. Problem with that, though, is that there were also Ukrainians who said that about the Russians when they annexed Crimea. Like, it doesn't mean anything for just some random Joe Blow to come out and say something like that. He doesn't represent a collective, democratically elected body of people. It's just some random guy. It's kind of like the same thing with some people in the HTS standing by a pickup, by a technical, and saying that they were going to march on Jerusalem. That does not mean that the HTS is going to march on Jerusalem. That's just some random guy who just said something, and that happened to be what he said. Like, with that, also the other thing is that it does not matter if they want the Israelis to control this area. Legally, by international law, this is controlled by the future Syria, whatever that may be. Just because someone says, I want another government to run this place, does not give Israel the legal authority or the right to be able to invade Syria and begin to take a chunk of their land. That's just not the way it works. Now, if these people don't like the future Syrian government, they can always try and leave and become a refugee, and whoever will take them at that point can take them. But at the same time, though, we can't have hypocritical rules when it comes to international law and whose land is what. It can't be right for the Israelis to invade and take over land of surrounding countries, but then wrong for the Russians to do it. Either it's wrong across the board or it's right across the board. Because I'm all for crushing our rivals and our enemies and making the diplomatic world a very one-sided world, largely leaning towards the West. But when it comes into the topic of saying, if we can justify taking land from other countries, that's just a hard no, in my opinion. Russia is not justified in illegally controlling any of Ukraine's land, same as Israel. Israel is not allowed any legal authority to invade and control Syrian lands just because someone on Twitter said they'd want it to happen. Because if that's what we work off of, I'm pretty sure that there's probably some person here in Alabama who's on Facebook right now wishing for the return of the Confederate States of America, and that would not justify the Chinese invading this country and creating the Confederate States of America out of the blue again, just because some random guy on Twitter said so. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, I believe we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person who put in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is going to be Angel Hernandez, who says, could it be possible that a foreign agent is using a submarine off the coast to launch the drones from it and therefore be undetected?
Submarine, they say?
A submarine.
I'm doubting it a little bit because, actually, interestingly enough, there's this major network of microphones that we've made within the area of the North Atlantic, at least near our coastline, all the way up to Newfoundland and all the way down, we believe, to around the area around Virginia. And there are loads of underwater microphones that are in this area, either placed on buoys or on the ocean floor, that can pick up the sound of submarines traveling through this area. That's actually why we knew that the Titan submersible imploded and everyone died on board well before they actually found the Titan submersible on the ocean floors, because these underwater microphone relays actually picked up the sound of the explosion. And up until then, the information about that system had been kept a secret, but then they finally said to the public that we knew that it imploded because we heard it on the microphones. But beyond that, we would be able to detect submarines traveling through this area based off of those microphones. They're pretty decent as far as detection, and we would be able to have heard at some point a diesel-electric submarine snorkeling and using its actual diesel motors. 1 second. Bless me.
Bless you.
Oh, man, I just blew a lung out. Oh man, 9mm. But beyond that, we would have been able to hear it snorkeling before it actually turned on its battery motors. And then with how long this has been going on, it would have had to have snorkeled again, and we would have heard it again on that relay. So I'm doubting it's a sub. It probably is some sort of a merchant vessel that is that just looks like any other innocent merchant vessel that's conducting this activity, and that's why it's really hard for us to pinpoint what exactly is happening or where it's coming from. And so I hope that does address that the best I can. And also a massive shout out, by the way, to Edgar's Vilmanus, who threw in a €10 super chat and said that he was a #1 fan. And I got to thank you so much, Edgars, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it was not for folks like you, we would not be able to make this thing possible and keep it running. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank all of you so much once again for watching this stream and enjoying it tonight. And also thank you for sharing that, Walter Lakota. The underwater microphones are called hydrophones. I was forgetting the actual name of them, and that is the name. And thank you for correcting that, because I was thinking when I was saying, I was like, there's another name for the underwater microphones, and thank you for sharing that. But beyond that, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I gotta thank you all so much once again for watching, and also everyone who's watched from beginning to end. At the peak tonight, we had about 10.2 thousand people here, and about 76,000 people have watched from tip to stern. And I gotta thank every single one of y'all once again for watching, and we will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And with that, folks, once again, huge shout out for another great stream tonight, and thank you all for making it possible. Thanks to the LSA. And also, real quick, I did get the Morse code in this time from Her Royal Fluffiness, who said that the Morse code says diplomacy is a strong point of Russia. They speak loudly, and they get the short end of the stick, LSA. And they do get the short end of the stick. And ding, 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 that's a sound of money. Shh. And once again, folks, thank you all for another great stream tonight. And of course, Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava. Be sure to join us tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern for the next nightly War News stream, and also midday tomorrow as well for the short war video. And I think tomorrow is Andrew's Day for the short war video. So if we have one, you'll be hearing from him. But with that, get some rest and good night.
Yes. The Lee Spring Army sends its regards.
Army shall